You're live.
Good morning, everyone. This meeting will now come to order. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Durham Historic Preservation Commission on this 7th day of December 2021. My name is Matt Bouchard, and I am the chair of the commission. The commission is a quasi-judicial board of record, and as such, all testimony will be recorded. Under this procedure, our meeting today will also be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. The proceedings of this board are governed by the zoning laws as recorded. As such, please note the steps we have taken to ensure that each party's due process rights are protected as we proceed on this remote platform. First, today's meeting will be conducted in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 166A, Section 19.24, which allows for remote meetings and quasi-judicial hearings during declarations of emergency. Second, each applicant on today's agenda was notified before being placed on the agenda that this meeting would be conducted using a remote electronic platform. Every applicant on today's agenda has consented to the board conducting the evidentiary hearing on their request using this remote platform. We will also confirm today at the start of each evidentiary hearing that the participants in the evidentiary hearing consent to the matter proceeding in this remote platform. If there is any objection to a matter proceeding in this remote platform, that case would be continued. Third, notice of this meeting was provided to the applicants and to the public in multiple ways, including signage posted on site, notification letters mailed to all adjacent property owners informing recipients regarding the remote platform, and a general announcement via our website informing the public of same. The notices for today's meeting advise the public on how to access the remote meeting as the meeting occurs. Individuals wishing to participate in today's evidentiary hearings were required to register prior to the meeting. Information about this registration requirement, along with information about how to sign up to participate, was included in the mailed notice letters sent to each adjacent property owner. This information was also included on the board's website. The public was advised to contact the city immediately in case of objection to the evidentiary hearing or to the remote meeting platform. I understand that 2 cases are proceedings today in which the city has been contacted by an individual with an objection to the case or to the matter being heard in this remote meeting platform. All individuals participating in today's evidentiary hearings were also required to submit a copy of any presentation, document, exhibit, or other material they wish to submit at the evidentiary hearing prior to today's meeting. All materials that the city received from the participants in today's cases, as well as a copy of city staff's presentations and documents, were posted online prior to this meeting. The agenda and all materials to be discussed today may be viewed at any time during today's meeting by visiting the web link for today's agenda via Durham's Agenda Center. Finally, all individuals who registered to participate in an evidentiary hearing on today's agenda, as well as all city staff participants, were emailed a witness oath and consent to a remote hearing form prior to today's meeting. Any individual planning to testify or submit evidence in an evidentiary hearing was notified that they must sign the oath form prior to today's meeting. We will also reaffirm everyone's oath on the record today during the meeting. Are there any members of the board that would have any conflicts of interest with regard to the cases before us today?
Chair Bouchard, this is Commissioner Hamilton. I would have conflicts of interest with the second and third cases from my time with Stewart. I think this should be the last of my recusals from that time, but so I'll only be able to participate in the first hearing today.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. So that's 501 Washington Street and 518 Morehead Avenue, correct?
Correct.
Great. Anybody else?
This is Commissioner Johnson. I will have to leave by 11:30 if we're not done.
That was going to be my next question. Are there any other requests for early dismissals today? And last opportunity to mention a conflict, although I'll ask before each hearing. All right. As chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, I'd like to remind everyone that our quasi-judicial hearings function similar to a court proceeding. Staff will first present an overview of the case, and then the applicant will have an opportunity to present their evidence. Opponents, if there are any, may then present their evidence, and the applicant may then present a rebuttal. Board members will refrain from questions or comments until each speaker has completed his or her presentation. Testimony should consist of facts each witness knows directly, not hearsay. Evidence already presented need not be repeated. All witnesses who have signed up in advance will be given the opportunity to speak, and their testimony will be recorded. The board will vote on each case after the presentation of all evidence, pro and con, concerning that case. All decisions of this board are subject to appeal to the Board of Adjustment and then to the Durham County Superior Court. Clerk Holmes, could you please take the attendance of the commissioners who are here today?
All right. Chair Bouchard.
Present.
Commissioner DeBerry. Commissioner Fieselman.
Here.
Vice Chair Goolsby.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Kreger.
Here.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Here.
Amanda, I'm here. Sorry.
All right. I got you.
We take this brief moment to welcome Faye Calhoun to the commission, I believe as mayor's appointee. It's great to have you, Faye.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And we thank Wanda Waiters for her many years of service on this commission. Commissioners, you've been forwarded an agenda for today's meeting. Would anyone, including city staff, like to recommend any adjustments to that agenda?
Carla Rosemary, Planning Department. No adjustments, please.
Great. Thank you, Carla. And commissioners, you've also been provided draft minutes for our last commission meeting held on this same remote platform on November the 9th of this year. Does anyone have any adjustments to the draft minutes that they would like to recommend? Hearing no comments, may I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Andy Goolsby, motion to approve.
May I have a second?
Commissioner Hamilton, second.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Clerk Holmes, if we could have a roll call vote for approval of the minutes.
All right. Chair Bouchard.
Approved?
Commissioner DeBerry.
Approved.
Vice Chair Goolsby.
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Approved.
Motion passes 4-0.
Well,
There's other commissioners part of the group.
I was absent, but I read the minutes. Do I still get to approve?
Yeah, I had taken out Dan because Dan isn't here. Johnson, you were excused. Kreger wasn't here, and Calhoun was not part of the board.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
And it is fine for April to
It's fine
vote if
for
she
her to
has
vote?
read if she has read the minutes.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson?
Approve.
All right. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Carla and Krista, for that clarification. And Clerk Holmes, if we could please swear in all city staff that will be presenting today's cases.
Do you, members of staff, swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's cases is the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. I do.
All right. We are now ready to proceed with our first case on today's agenda. This is case number COA 2100064, 1111 Wall Street, continued from October 5, 2021. Chris, if you could let me know who is planning on speaking for the applicant today?
Yes, Chair Bouchard. We have three individuals registered, but I only see two in attendance. I'm looking for. Okay, I see Jody and Brandon are probably on the same call. Okay, then it looks like everyone's here.
Great. So we've got Jody and Brandon worked, and we've got Mark Barron, correct?
Correct.
Great. If we could start with Jody, then move to Brandon, then move to Mark. Clerk Holmes, if you could please administer the oath.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Mark Barron, yes, I do.
And if we could go in the same order, do all of you consent to this hearing proceeding today on the Zoom platform?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
And just to double check, any commissioners have any conflicts of interest with respect to this case? All right. Hearing none, we are ready to proceed. If we could please have a staff summary.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case 1111 Wall Street, addition, modifications, new construction of accessory structure and site work. The applicant is Mark Barron, the owners Jody Lynn Gaston Wirt and Brandon Wirt, located on the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Wall Street and Alston Avenue, zoned residential suburban 8, and it is a contributing structure in the Golden Belt Historic District. So as stated, this is a continuance from the October 5th hearing for constructing the rear enclosed porch, some changes to fenestration. There have been some significant changes to the accessory structure that was proposed at the back. I'd like to introduce this updated staff report into the record and invite the applicant to present his case.
Thank you so
And
much.
if you need me to jump to any particular page in the PDF, just tell me the page number and I'll jump right to it.
Thank you so much, Carla.
I believe I can start.
Please do, Mr. Barron.
Yeah, thank you, Carla, and welcome to the new Commissioner Calhoun. I do have a correction on the zoning. It's RU5.
Oh, apologize for that. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't plan on saying too much. We did thoroughly review this case at the last meeting, so I won't repeat much of that. Just a couple reminders that this house is one of the more rundown houses in the neighborhood, and that it's been unoccupied since January of 2020. And since then, it's been broken into and vandalized a few times. So just a reminder of those things, overview. I won't say too much about the house itself either, the primary house, since there didn't seem to be many objections about the improvements in the addition that we had planned at the last meeting. Most of the discussion revolved around the accessory dwelling unit that was behind the house, that's proposed to be behind the house. We presented last time, we had the story pole that was as tall as the accessory dwelling unit with the red flag up there. And we showed how from all the vantage points of the neighborhood, all the streets and sidewalks of Alston and Wall, that the flag or the height of the ADU was significantly below the height of the house. So we had all gotten pretty comfortable with the idea that it was clearly subordinate through that lens. The main objection, like I said, was with the ADU. The main objections were revolving around the tallest point of the ADU, which was the roof over the garage. It was a shed roof, and it was the highest element of the accessory dwelling unit. We completely changed that. That main objection you had last meeting. The owners sacrificed quite a bit. They sacrificed a bedroom and a bathroom to bring the roof line more compatible with the surrounding roof forms. And we also shifted the ADU further to the east, which further reduces the view, the kind of short view span you have down the driveway towards the ADU. By shifting it over 5 feet, we accomplished two things. We got further away from the large pin oak tree, which is something we are required and want to save and keep healthy, that tree. And also moving it 5 feet was as far as we could move it to keep a functional driveway to the garage. And we have retained the garage as well. Wall Street is a one-way street. It's very narrow, and there's a lot of congestion on Wall Street in that part of the neighborhood. So providing a garage and the extended driveway brings 2 cars off of Wall Street, which we think will be an improvement to the neighborhood as well. But unless Jody and Brandon have something to add, I'm just going to leave it there since we reviewed this so much at the last meeting.
Hey, thank you, Mark. We would love for people to see the drawing that you're talking about right now, the front facing view, so people can see the change in the roof line.
Sure.
Right. Oh, back, Carla. Thank you.
Yeah, it's page
Right there.
37.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, and if also, yeah, so the change is, if you look at the top left drawing, the front elevation of the existing home, you could see the ADU in the background. And this is at an artificial, vantage point floating, whatever it is, 15 feet in the air, looking at the front of the house. You see that what was a shed roof back there is now a gable roof and a gable dormer that is a lot like the front of the house. And Carla, if you could go to page 39, that's the 3D views. Yeah, you can see everyone liked this upper image of the sort of repeating roof line between the house and the ADU. That didn't change. And then if on my screen, I can't see the bottom drawing. Okay. And then there you can see the new dormer, the new roof form over the garage, very much more compatible and in line with the surrounding roof forms. And a porch facing the same, a second story porch facing the same direction as the house front porch with the same railing. If you remember with the last design, we had that shed roof and we had 2 nice, very large porches off of each bedroom. And that's something the client really loved and something else that they were willing to sacrifice to be more in line with the standards. So we did manage to hold on to 1 porch off of the what is now the common area upstairs. There's a bedroom. Actually, we can go to that, Carla. The page 33. I know the page numbers this time, Carla.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Those are the floor plans right there on the left. There's a bubble around it showing that all that has changed. It's new from the last time. That shows there's only 1 bedroom up there on the right side. with the skylight. We had a skylight the last time too. But now we have two, one on each side of the dormer. And then the area to the left there, that open flex space is just an open area. Wasn't enough room for 2 bedrooms, and that porch is off of that open area up there, facing Wall Street. But the first floor, nothing changed from the outside on the first floor of the ADU, just the second floor, or that half story above the garage. Nothing changed with the house. Oh, I'm glad you're here, Carla. The bottom left-hand drawing, we did add that window. It's just the same window that's on the east elevation there. The client, Jody and Brandon, wanted more light in that entry room. So we added that same window there to the right of the door. That was the only change to the primary house. And I think, yeah, unless Jody and Brandon have more, I just answer questions.
All right, thank you all very much. Do we have any questions from our commissioners? I am scanning the ribbon at the top of the screen to see if there are any hands or turned off microphones, and I'm not seeing any. I did have one question related to the house. And it involves our criterion pertaining to the painting or coating of original exterior materials such as brick. Mark, this is probably a question for you. Is there, a reason for parging the existing foundations?
I was trying to remember where we landed with that at the last meeting. This came up at the last meeting as well. We were proposing to, what was it? I think Brandon and I talked about this more than anybody else. We were going to expose the brick on the piers, right? Because the brick was original, and then repaint the CMU infill between the piers is painted currently, so we were just going to repaint that.
To my knowledge, it's parged now. The bricks are parged now, and there have been score marks to match the CMU block around the outside. So I think it's an aesthetic detail that's an interesting one. I understand the desire to expose brick. I'm a little reluctant to, just because it's 120-year-old brick and 120-year-old pointing that's in those bricks. It seems to me that it's an appropriate continuance of a change that's already been made to that structure, to keep it parged and to make it consistent all the way around the skirt or apron of the house. That would be my preference as the homeowner.
Yeah, and that Brandon did remind me that we did talk about that last time, how it was already parged and we were just continuing the existing conditions.
So would it be fair to say it's really an aesthetic purpose to continue parging the rest of the foundation brick?
I would say aesthetics and cleaning up the look and having a clean painting surface is one aspect. The other aspect I do believe is structural, because the more you expose a 120-year-old kiln-fired red brick and mortar that's 120 years old to the elements, the more maintenance you have. And so we're investing an incredible amount of money in this structure, given the square footage, to bring it back to really good standards, to rectify some things that have been changed historically. But I just feel like that, on balance, that skirt around the outside of the building would be another really large expense to remove the existing parging and to repoint all of the brickwork that's 120 years old. It makes a lot more sense in my mind to put that money into removing asbestos shingles that were added in the 1950s, making sure the original shiplap is in good shape, that we have a professional paint job on the exterior, and a roof that will maintain the structure of this house and protect it from the elements. So it is aesthetic, and I think it does clean up the building quite a lot and make it more pleasant to look at. It is a continuance of a condition that a house is already in, and I understand the commission has precedents that are set like that are generally okay to move forward. And it does have a structural element, and finally a financial element for us. We're working folk, and we're doing this on a wing and a prayer. And so we really have to watch our budget at this point. We appreciate the commission's understanding that.
Let me just ask one follow-up question on this topic. I mean, you're proposing to continue the parging to achieve, a level of consistency, to clean up some parging that was done before this structure became a part of the historic district that we have jurisdiction over. You've suggested, Mr. Wirt, the possibility of actually removing the existing parging to achieve the same level of consistency, but just going the other direction. Is there not a third option, which is just leave sort of things as they are now and doing nothing further, either with respect to parging brick that is not currently parged, or removing parging from brick that has already been parged? Is that not an option?
Could I jump in, Brandon, real quick? Yeah, just to mention that the parging, if there is any brick exposed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, you've been there more often than me, but the brick that is exposed is, belongs to a pier that's partially exposed. Like there's parging over most of it or some of it, and then there's some brick showing. But where brick is showing, there's also incomplete parging. Is that right, Brandon? And
Yeah,
it's just the corner piers.
There are places where it's failing.
Yeah. So it's not like there's some piers aren't parged at all and some are. All the piers are either fully parged or partially parged.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any other commissioners? Seeing and hearing none, I will ask this question that I think I know the answer to. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing and hearing no opposition from any other speaker, I will close the public hearing and open the floor for discussion amongst the commissioners.
Commissioner Goldsby, this is a question to the group as a whole. I was not here during this first hearing, and my question is, is this group satisfied with what they see here in terms of? I know there was once a shed roof, or at least a taller roof in that accessory dwelling. Does this satisfy that discussion that you guys previously had?
Yes, Commissioner April. I think the accessory dwellings roof was the main issue from what I remember back in, I think this was in October, if I'm not mistaken. And I think I'm satisfied. I think that the issue we had was with the roof and kind of the clunkiness of the two porches there. That's kind of what I remember, but I am satisfied with the changes made. And I appreciate the owners for sacrificing the additional porch space to accommodate some design concerns.
I think height was the other concern, which is now addressed.
Anybody else have thoughts in response to Vice Chair Goolsby's question? Yeah, I think for sure the homeowners here and Mr. Barron have taken very seriously the concerns we had raised back in October and incorporated changes that directly address the concerns that were raised. And so I applaud them for that. The only concern I do have is creating a precedent on the parging issue. Curious if any other commissioners share that concern. And I'd also be interested in hearing Carla's thoughts about the potential risk involved if we permit this application to move forward, the COA to move forward with the parging of the foundation brick.
This is Commissioner Hamilton. It's all parged currently, right? So this is not adding parging. This is just reparging, like maintaining an existing condition and repairing, correct? Like this is repairing, I guess.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. I think the applicant had stated that it was partially parged, that there are some areas that are exposed, and so the request is to continue the parging to cover those currently exposed areas. And what I'll say from a structural standpoint, the reason that we have a criterion that prohibits sealing historic masonry is because of the density difference between the two substances, between a Portland cement that was typically used in the parging process and the actual historic substance. That differential creates an inability for water to leave brick during the freeze thaw cycle. And so it ends up degrading the brick over time. And it could be because each of these piers has had a parged condition for who knows how many years. They may well be compromised, and that would require further investigation. I would caution against furthering a condition that is not ideal or beneficial for the historic material.
This is Commissioner Hamilton. Can we get clarification? Because I just want to make sure that it is that there's uncovered parts and that it's not that the parge coat is crumbling already. And that's what's causing the uncovered parts of the bricks. Because like, yes, if there's uncovered parts that were not previously parged, that's a very different issue than if it's parge coat that's crumbling and has exposed some bricks beneath that are, like, I think that would be good clarification. Yeah.
That are compromised.
Yeah.
I'll reopen the public hearing for the limited purpose of giving the words from Mr. Barron an opportunity to respond to Commissioner Hamilton's question.
Yeah, I'm looking at the existing photos and trying to find a good example to see if I have a close-up. But this is a pier and curtain wall foundation system. So the piers are brick. So the piers are at each corner, and they are brick, and they have been parged. And I'm not so sure the right term is crumbling. I think it's just been chipped off, over time, maybe some whacking it with a lawnmower and different things like that. It seems like that's more the cause. It doesn't look like a crumbling. It looks more like a impact chipping, I suppose. And then the curtain wall between the piers is CMU. It's concrete masonry units, and it's painted. So I think that, and Brandon can correct me if I'm wrong, I think I hear Brandon saying that he would prefer to parge everything, the brick piers and the CMU block. Another option is, and also, sorry, the CMU block infill between the piers is painted and the paint looks terrible. It's peeling and fading. So I believe the idea is on the brick piers where the parging has chipped off in places is just to reparge those areas where the parging has been chipped off. And then to either, according to Brandon and Jody's preferences and the findings at this hearing, with the infill wall, whether we repaint that since it's already painted or parge that. I'm not clear, and maybe Carla knows more about when that infill was put in. It is CMU block. So maybe Carla, you know more about when that was first used in this area. But I have a feeling that the block was infilled at a later date and the mortar might be more modern than historic mortar.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. I would guess in the second half of the last century, sometime after 1950. And I will say that because CMU is not, it's actually directly prohibited by the criteria, we would encourage parging of that service.
So in essence, we are repairing parging on the brick piers and covering CMU with parging. If I'm hearing Brandon right, that was his preference.
Yeah, Brandon Wirt, homeowner at 1111 Street. I think that would be my preference, at least initially. I'm really open, Carl, especially after hearing you talk about the structural problems with parging and expressing water from the original bricks and mortar to get our contractor to take a look at that. If there really are structural issues with that, I would like the option as the homeowner to repair existing parging, parge CMU, which according to y'all's would be recommended, and paint in one color, or if there are structural issues, to address those by removing the parging from the bricks and repointing the original piers. It'd be really nice as the homeowner to have the option to do one or the other of those, and the commission's approval to make that decision at a date when we can work with our contractor to determine the best course forward.
Carla, I see you nodding your head.
I think that makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would support perhaps maybe a condition of working with staff on which way to go on that.
I'm going to reclose the public hearing. Are there any other comments the commissioners would like to make? Not necessarily just about the parging issue, but about anything contained in the application.
Well, Commissioner Calhoun, I think you will have made a major contribution to this neighborhood. I appreciate what you have done. Your plans are beautiful. I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Matt, will you allow me to make a motion?
You don't need my permission. Go for it. I think we're ready. Actually, before you do that, Commissioner Fieselman, I should ask Carla for a staff recommendation.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Staff would recommend approval of the application with the condition that the applicant work with staff to verify the condition of the existing historic brick piers to determine whether to fully parge or fully expose those piers.
Okay, I think I got that, Carla. If I say it wrong, correct me, please. Okay, Commissioner Fieselman wanting to make a motion. Can I go for it, Matt? It's gonna be long.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the Durham Historic Preservation Commission finds that in the case COA 21-00064, 1111 Wall Street, modifications, new construction of accessory structure and site work, that the applicant is proposing an addition and modifications to contributing structure, as well as new construction of an accessory structure, along with associated site work. One existing front door will be removed from the primary structure and replaced with a new 1 light over 2 panel wood door, and an identical door will be installed beside it within the original duplex door openings. 2 enclosed porches will be removed from the rear of the structure and replaced with a new 1-story, 187 square foot addition. The addition will be constructed with cementitious fiberboard siding and 2/1 windows to match existing replacement windows on the house. 1 deteriorated window will be replaced with a new pair of French doors, leading to a new pressure-treated wood screened porch and decks. 2 accessory structures will be relocated from the center rear of the lot to a rear location closer to the street. A 1.5-story accessory structure will be constructed at the rear of the lot using a cementitious fiberboard siding to match the addition, wood railings, doors, and trim, a fiberglass garage door, and 2/1 fiberglass double hung and 1/1 casement windows to match the primary structure's replacement windows. 6 solid matte black solar panels will be installed symmetrically on both the primary and accessory structures to project no more than 4 inches from the roof surface. A rustic split face segmented concrete block retaining wall measuring 115 linear feet and 4 feet in height will be installed along the side yard facing the street. The existing driveway will be extended to meet the garage portion of the new ADU using matching materials. Therefore, the conclusion of law is that the proposed addition and alterations are consistent with the historic character and qualities of the historic district and are consistent with the historic properties local review criteria, specifically those listed in the staff report, and the Durham Historic Preservation Commission approves the certificate of appropriateness for case COA 21-00064, 111 Wall Street, additions, modifications, new construction of accessory structure and site work with the following conditions. 1, the improvement shall be substantially consistent with the plans and testimony presented to the commission at this commission hearing and attached to the COA. 2, the improvements may require additional approvals from other city or county departments or state or local agencies. And the applicant is responsible for obtaining all required approvals relating to building construction, site work, and work in the right-of-way. And 3, the compliance inspection shall be performed immediately upon completion of the work approved herein. And 4, the applicant will work with staff to determine the condition of the foundation and determine whether the pier should be fully parged or exposed.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner DeBerry, second.
Thank you, Commissioner DeBerry, and thank you, Commissioner Fieselman, for the motion. If we could have a roll call vote, please. Clerk Holmes.
Pierre Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Approved.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Approved.
Vice Chair Goolsby,
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Approved.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Commissioner Kreger,
Approved.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Approved.
Motion passes 8-0.
Terrific. Thank you all very much for your patience with this process, for all of your hard work in addressing our concerns. I think everyone here is very excited about what you've got planned, and we wish you success moving forward.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure if it matters for the record, but my first name under owner is Jodi. It says Y, and I don't know if that matters, but if it does. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thanks again. Happy holidays.
Happy
Before we
holidays.
move on to our next case, Chris, could you let me know who is going to be speaking for and against?
We have the applicant team, Lindsay Kitchen, Cindy Hoffman, Jeff Kurtz will all be speaking for, and then we have Tom Miller, who is in opposition. And then we also have a Vera Winston, but they did not select what their position on the agenda is. And I'm going to be bringing them in right now.
Okay.
My understanding was that she wanted to listen.
So we will now hear case COA 21000078, 501 Washington Street, continued from November 9, 2021. I understand that Mr. Peterson is bringing in our applicant and other speakers. I see Ms. Crutchman. I see Mr. Kurtz. I see Mr. Miller. I see Ms. Hoffman.
Jeff Kurtz, we have two Jeff Kurtz signed up. Do you know if someone else, if you shared your link with someone else on your team?
I did share the link just for them to listen in.
Okay, they're just listening in.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we will first confirm that other than Commissioner Hamilton, no other commissioners have any conflicts of interest that would prohibit them from hearing this case. Is that correct? Or does any commissioner have to recuse themselves? Okay, so we will be proceeding without Commissioner Hamilton. If we could go, I guess we'll do this alphabetically. We'll start with Ms. Hoffman, then Ms. Crutchman, then Mr. Kurtz, then Mr. Miller. If we could have the oath administered by Clerk Holmes.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Ms. Hoffman?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Crutchman. Mr. Kurtz again?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Miller?
I do.
And in the same order, if I could please obtain from each of you your consent to proceed with this proceeding using the online platform.
I agree.
I agree too.
Great. Thank you all very much. If we could please have a staff report.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case COA 21000078. It's 501 Washington Street, new construction. The applicant is Stewart, represented by Cindy Hoffman and colleagues. And the owner is Magnolia Fire Tower Place LLC. It's located on the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Washington Street and Corporation Street, Zone Downtown Design Support 1. And it is a historic landmark, not in a historic district, but it's a city garage and fire tower. So the applicant is proposing to construct two buildings on the site. One that sits directly behind the landmark is to be 5 stories, and the one to the right of it is 6 stories. And these will be connected by a 5-story walkway bridge. I'd like to introduce the staff report into the record and invite the applicants to present their case, noting that there was another staff report introduced in November. This case was continued for notification reasons. And so the application has been significantly revised since that November date. So the applicant, if you have a page number that I need to scroll to, just let me know and I'll go right to it.
Great. This is Jeff Kurtz with the development team, representing the developer. I just wanted to begin with a quick introduction and say, first of all, I appreciate all the time and consideration. We were here in October before you for the demolition of the structures on site. As Carla noted, we had submitted an application from November which showed the site plan for the development. Since that time, we've had ongoing conversations with Preservation Durham. We've met with some of the other neighbors and constituents around the site, presented the plans. And what you'll see today is really a representation of the ongoing conversations and the iterations to the design based off of those conversations. We really, are pleased with the direction of the building and the design. We've incorporated some of the feedback that we had received from Preservation Durham, from Mr. Miller and other members of the Preservation Durham board, and have really enjoyed the process and think that the design has benefited from it. So what we'll present today is the design of the two buildings, and feel that these buildings meet the criteria for new construction on the site, and believe that the development that is proposed is really compatible with the scale, height, and massing of the City Garage building and the buildings within the adjacent neighborhood and context. Also feel that the materials that are shown, are a good representation and compatible with the materials on site and with the neighborhood. So Cindy Hoffman is with Stewart, our landscape architect on the project, and she'll walk you through the site design and the planning for the project.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning. My name is Cindy Hoffman. I'm a licensed professional landscape architect with over 20 years experience. I'm a senior project manager at Stewart here in Durham. We're here today requesting a major certificate of appropriateness for two new buildings. A portion of Building A is a 6-story building to the north of City Garage, and Building B is a 5-story building to the west of City Garage. And Carla, I think if you can go to page 8, you can see that. Oh, I'm sorry, but that's overall the context there. The project site is located on 2.789 acres at 501 Washington Street, which is a prominent visible site at the corner of Washington and West Corporation Streets, and adjacent to and east of the existing abandoned railroad or future Durham Beltline in downtown Durham. The overall character, the City Garage and the fire drill tower were originally constructed in the 1920s, and it served as the city's fleet management site and fire drill tower. Today, the City Garage building houses various commercial uses, including shops, restaurants, and professional offices. The intent of the new structures on the site is to create a place that respects the architectural history of the area while connecting City Garage and fire tower to the evolving context of one of Durham's most dynamic neighborhoods and future Beltline. And if you could go to page 35, please. And here you see the proposed site plan. The proposed buildings are oriented towards the street and Beltline with setbacks of 18 and 12 feet from back of curb or the property line per the UDO storefront frontage requirements, and to the north and west of City Garage. A 5-level open pedestrian bridge will connect the two buildings with passage below to the Beltline. And placement of the buildings does not obscure any of the views of the historic City Garage or fire tower. Residential forecourts along buildings B. I've lost my place. I'm sorry. Provides architectural relief to the building facades and activation of the adjacent pedestrian areas. We're proposing an alley, a one-way alley that's 26 feet wide for a fire lane for emergency vehicles, service, and solid waste access. This would be restricted for vehicular access. It'd be primarily activated pedestrian bicycle connection to the Beltline and between the buildings, with a series of smaller amenity spaces off the alley, creating a range of semi-private experiences, particular pool courtyard and patios and landscaped areas. The site plan proposes removal of a few existing trees. There's one removal of a street tree on Corporation, just to gain access to the site. And there's some removal of some interior trees, I think a total of 5 trees interior to the site. none of major significance. And then the removal of 6 oak trees on an existing parking lot to the north of City Garage. Those were mainly just to incorporate the new buildings and access to the site. We are maintaining and preserving the street trees along West Corporation Street and Washington Streets, the 10 oaks, larger oaks, as well as the parking area trees in front of City Garage. There are 6 oaks in that area. In addition, we're proposing street trees along West Corporation Street and Washington Street, an additional 7 trees, and additional 7 shade trees interior to the site. There is an existing employee bathroom on site with granite ashlar pavers that were built from the former Durham streets that's in need of environmental remediation. It has significant mold issues. The existing location obstructs the proposed fire lane, which is needed for and therefore we need to relocate and or repurpose the bathroom with the granite blocks. We've been working with Preservation Durham on various options for relocating and repurposing the bathroom. One of the options would be to keep the bathroom at the existing location. The second option would be relocating to pedestrian plaza area at the corner of City Garage to be used as a pavilion. I think you can see in that northwest corner of the City Garage in that area. Opening it up as a pavilion and an amenity. Third option would be relocating behind City Garage to be used as a screen wall around a transformer. And we would need to make sure Duke Energy is involved with that and approve any structures around their transformer if that option, but we're studying that. And a fourth option would be relocating the bathroom to the belt line. And we've been in conversations with the city and they're very interested. That process is multi-layered and takes a little bit of time, but they're the 4 options that we're looking at currently to preserve, repurpose the existing bathroom structure. And at this time, I would turn the presentation over to Lindsay Crutchman with Klein Design Architects to review the architectural components.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm Lindsay Crutchman. As Cindy said, with Klein Design Architects, I have over 11 years of experience with Klein Design specifically and working on projects in downtown Durham. So Carla, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, so I'll tell you page numbers as I go and try to hit these bullet points quickly. We're going to start with page 41. I'm going to start talking about the scale and proportion and height of the new buildings related to the historic buildings and adjacent buildings in the area. This diagram is showing the original intent at the top was to maximize the density on the site per this construction type. And so the top section shows a typical 5/2 podium building that you would see downtown that you see near the site. When we studied it, the massing, and we studied it in relationship to the existing buildings, we did not feel like that height is appropriate. And so we elected, and the developer elected voluntarily to pull the height down to that section that you see at the bottom. And so we have sacrificed some density for that, but it is definitely more appropriate and is very close to the height of the fire tower. And the spaces in between the buildings and on the approach feel much better with that proportion and scale of building B. We also sacrificed some rentable square footage to narrow building B. So we have on this particular building that fits between the Beltline and the City Garage, we have pulled the units in and made them more narrow so that the building has more relief up against City Garage. And that has made the alley space become more of an active and pleasant space to walk through behind City Garage. And we've added some forecourts in the units on the ground level to really activate the space and provide a space that feels comfortable both for the residents and for the public that will be coming through there. And going to page 42. We studied the relationship of this building to the Bullington condos. So this is a section looking down, basically cutting through along Corporation Street. This is approximate. We had to take some information that we could find without having an accurate survey, but we think this is pretty accurate. And you can see with the tiering of the parking lot down to the belt line that the grade change, even though this building proposed is taller than the Bullington condos, it really is in keeping with the scale of that adjacent building just because of the grade change and how you experience it on the site. Okay, we can go to page 48. This is a rendering looking at the Corporation Street side of the city garage and the building B end. We have created, you can see we've expressed the base of the building, pushing it in and creating more storefront glazing so that that 1-story proportion relates to the form and the windows fenestration on the existing city garage building. And we have adjusted the exterior material. So one of the major revisions between the previous application and this one was conversations with HPC and looking at what is appropriate for the site. So our original application, we've always wanted this new structure to feel different and to contrast with the existing building. We don't want to try to replicate something that's historic. It's just not possible. And I think it doesn't do justice to the historic building. So we want to let the historic building shine and the craftsmanship of the brick, the masonry, and the detailing shine, and let the modern building really be new construction and really be a clean canvas as a backdrop to that historic building, so that the new building becomes a canvas rather than trying to overpower it. But when we reviewed that application with the fiber cement, we had all fiber cement smooth cementitious material that contrasted pretty dramatically with a historic building. We talked through it and agreed that, maybe we need something that blends a little better and ties with the context around it. So this rendering shows that we have incorporated 3 stories of masonry. And so this masonry is proposed as a more modern masonry. It is in kind of a red tone, which is compatible with the context, but it will be a monolithic and smooth masonry. So it will still have a good contrast with the textural color and texture of the historic building. What this also does, the reason why we landed on this iteration with 3 stories of masonry and the cementitious material at the top, it also helps to bring down the scale of the building even further. And it helps transition, from the taller brick buildings down to the 1-story brick building. And it helps it be a little bit more subservient to the fire tower. So the fire tower can kind of be the focal point. Okay, let's see. I think we can go to page 37. So these are just the 2D elevations, and they're in black and white. And so it may be a little bit difficult to see, but I just wanted to show this quickly to show the east elevation on the top is the elevation you were just seeing that is facing City Garage. And the west elevation on the bottom is the elevation that faces the belt line. We have incorporated the masonry along the east elevation, which with conversations with HPC, that east elevation behind City Garage is the most prominent and likely the most important. And so we've incorporated the masonry, and it wraps around Corporation Street, and it wraps around the corner of this west elevation, so that when you're standing on Corporation and you're approaching the City Garage, you're seeing a masonry corner. As the building continues to the north, we have reverted back to the cementitious material along the back and the beltline side. That is to help tie this building in with the building that is to the north of it, the building A. We didn't want it to feel like 2 completely different projects. We want it to blend and transition over to that building. We do have the masonry continuing at the ground level. So on your street level experience and along the belt line, you will see that masonry continue all the way and thread through the whole project. Also on this exhibit, I want to point out the bridge that Cindy alluded to connecting the two buildings. We originally looked at tying the buildings together, could have gained density that way, but we sacrificed the density to pull them apart. And we also looked at the bridge as being enclosed and conditioned for, a pleasant experience for the residents. And we felt like that was too closed off, and it basically created an impediment with your view and connection to the Beltline. And so we have elected to open up that bridge. So it is an open air bridge. It has the structure expressed, and it gives a really good opportunity to use some of the industrial elements that were in keeping with what was on the site and what's in the district. We think this helps tremendously with breaking down the scale of this building and allowing views and connection through from the city garage to the Beltline. Okay, so we can go now to page 50. So this is the view on Corporation at almost the corner of Corporation and Washington Street, and you can see Building B in the background there. I want to use this image to talk about rhythm and order. One of the revisions that we've made from the previous application was to add more glazing on this east-facing facade behind City Garage. We have added additional glazing that's wider, and that it relates to the width of the openings on the City Garage more than the previous version did. We have also ganged the windows together vertically and included cementitious panels between them. And that is specifically to relate to the historic method of construction where you have a panel system in between the windows. And you can see it on the Broady building adjacent, and even the fire tower has that vertical expression and inset panels in between the windows. And we think this helps with such a horizontal building. This helps break it up into a vertical proportion and a regular rhythm that lets the building kind of fade into the fabric that's around it. Let's see. The building in general characteristics has a strong cornice, and it has a recessed base and glass at the base, which helps define that base, middle, and top related to the historic buildings in the area. We also have flat roofs, and that is compatible with the buildings in the area, but it is also to accomplish a method of screening the mechanical equipment on the roof. So we have opaque parapets that will hide all of that mechanical equipment up there, and so your street level can be cleaner. Okay, the next item on the list is talking about the windows. We are proposing all windows of the same style in the same color in a dark bronze. We have a major revision from the previous application is that we originally had budgeted for upgraded vinyl windows that are dark bronze. So not your typical vinyl windows that you see on residential structures, but commercial, really good quality vinyl windows that are dark bronze color. But talking through that, this prominent elevation of the east facing building B that's behind the city garage and then around Corporation Street, basically where we've added the masonry, we have upgraded those, everything on those faces to aluminum windows that are similar to the historic buildings. We have, I wanted to point out that we have included both aluminum and vinyl windows in the application. And that is because we are still proposing the vinyl windows on elsewhere on the building. And when it's not in this prominent zone, if it's on the back. Those vinyl windows are dark bronze and are the same style. And you can go to page 60. We've included some examples of projects around Durham that have these dark bronze, higher quality vinyl windows. What you're seeing here is Solis Brightleaf, which you're probably familiar with. That's next to what I think is one of the most beautiful historic buildings at Brightleaf Square. These windows that you see on this face are the dark bronze vinyl windows. And a lot of people have come up to me asking, how do we afford those windows that look so nice? But they look the same and similar to the dark bronze storefront that you see at the base of this building when they're incorporated into the building detailing correctly. It's going to look pretty seamless. So I just wanted to reiterate that we did upgrade along the prominent sides of Building B, where you're going to see the aluminum windows in context with City Garage, but elsewhere on the building, we are proposing these dark bronze vinyl windows. They are very durable, they're energy efficient, and they are better for water intrusion, which is super important for wood construction. It also is going to help offset the cost so that we can have that masonry that I think really upgrades the appearance of Building B. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about the City Garage building itself. So you can go to page 40. We have added to this exhibit from the previous version some elevations in this sheet in particular, talking about the back of the City Garage. As part of the separate certificate of appropriateness, we are demolishing the newer addition that you see there, the white building that's 2-story, and leaving the 1-story City Garage building behind. And so there's going to be two facades here and then one along the other side of the alley that kind of need to be healed and replaced with something. And our goal is that, as the building is being demolished, we're hoping that the original stone walls are intact and that they are in good shape and that we can reuse them. But we know that the reality of construction is that that might not be the case. And depending on how the building comes down, we may have to put something back. So what we are proposing here along the back, that the stone continues along the back where this addition is. And we do not think that we will be able to properly replicate that stone. We'll have more success replacing that with a brick that's really close to the original. And because it's going to be kind of flanked by these stone walls, it won't be directly adjacent to the brick. And we will be replacing that with a more textured, more tumbled and brick that's a similar color to the existing building. And that will, I think, be a huge improvement along this alley to have that consistent material as you come through there. Okay, I think those are all of my bullet points. And so I will turn it back over to Jeff to conclude and summarize our request.
Thank you, Lindsay. I just want to finish by saying this is a project that we are very excited about. We think that the proposed uses and the proposed structure here are a really good way to reactivate this site. We think that the opportunity to link this site into the proposed Beltline is great, and that the residential uses along that edge are going to help contribute to the activity on the future Beltline. The ability to bring retail to the corner of Corporation in this building, as we're proposing, it will be a significant boom for the city and a great way to, again, activate one of what we assume to be an access point onto the trail at the corner of Corporation. We think that the uses are proposed, the addition of the new buildings, the way that they will address the Beltline and the street frontages along Washington and Corporation are in keeping with the historic character of the site and the historic character of the neighborhood. We think that the materials and the scale that are shown, will kind of offer a seamless integration of the new construction into the old construction. As such, we're requesting approval of the certificate of appropriateness for the 501 Washington Street. We are also requesting consideration to remove the 365-day waiting period for the demolition of the structures on site. We've worked well with Preservation Durham to find solutions to how to heal the building after the demolition of the pieces on site. We also are fairly confident, very confident that we found good solutions for the relocation of the bathroom. As Cindy has said, we are considering 4 locations. Unfortunately, the first location where to maintain it in its existing condition is probably not feasible. We're working with our design team at Duke on possibly using the materials from the existing bathroom to screen the transformer, and we'll continue those conversations with them. A third location is, as shown on the plans, to recreate the building in some form and use it as an outdoor and a gathering space in which we can include language and a plaque to commemorate the historic bathroom and to use it as an active space. The fourth option is one that is a longer process, and that's an ongoing conversation with the city and coordination with the city's Beltline project managers on how the bathroom could potentially be relocated onto the city property, how that may integrate with their timeline for design and construction of the Beltline. But as proposed, we've presented the bathroom location to Preservation Durham, feel that we have very good solutions, and are committed to continuing to work with everybody to come up with a design that we're all happy and proud of. So again, we're requesting approval of certificate of appropriateness. Thank you, and any additional questions or comments that you may have, we're happy to address.
Thank you very much, all. Before we move on to Mr. Miller, I'd like to open the floor for questions from the commissioners to the applicant.
This is Commissioner Johnson. I just have a quick question, and I'm looking now just in case I missed it, but the removal of the stone, I thought that in the presentation there was a removal of stone from the existing building to replace with brick. Is that a request in the application? It's not in the state court part, but
I can respond to that. I think that's in relation to this slide here that's on the screen. We're not requesting to remove stone. We are demoing the addition, and we're hoping that the stone is intact there. And if it's not, it may have to be replaced with brick as the exterior wall.
Commissioner Johnson? Okay. Just going to see if you had any follow-up. Any other commissioners with questions for the applicant?
This is Commissioner Goldsby. I've got a couple questions here. Some are quicker, I think. First, the materials for the bridge. What is that structure? Is it going to be a steel structure?
It will be a combination of steel and wood.
All right. Second, you showed a section compared to the Bullington building. Do you have one comparing it to the Broady Duke across the street?
We do not, but that is something we can study.
Okay. Do you know offhand how much taller you are than that building?
I do not. Let me look, see if I can find information quickly.
If you want to look while we're still talking, that's fine. My last question though is, seems like a lot of your focus and adjustments of materials were to building B. Can you just speak to why there were no adjustments to building A in terms of how you use fiber cement on the street, or at least on the site, and particularly as you're facing the city garage?
Yes, in our conversations with Preservation Durham and looking at the configuration of the building, building A has a pool courtyard. And so it's pushed back along that side and is less prominent. So when you're viewing it from the corporation side, it's kind of recedes to the background. So the feeling was that to spend, that effort, design effort, where it's more prominent and more visible, that was our strategy. And the original application stated that the cementitious material was appropriate. So this is a change to kind of upgrade the design for building B.
I would just add to that, Lindsay, is that the piece that faces building B in the city garage site directly is kind of our active leasing and amenity area. We're using a fair amount of glass in that piece now at the ground floor. And then also there is an upper floor viewing deck and viewing terrace that has a storefront system up there. Mixing in some of the fiber cement between that glass, seemed like an appropriate use of materials there. Also, as we recess behind the pool courtyard, that facade is a little bit more articulated with balconies. We create some balconies for the residential units that we don't have on building B. So using that, having the facade broken up with the balconies, varied the facade a little bit more than what we had on building B. So we felt comfortable with the design direction there.
Carla, on page 54, we have a rendering of that massing. So you can see the roof terrace and the balcony and how the lower level has an accent and lots of glass. So that mass is broken up, and then we do continue the masonry as you go down Washington Street. So that end is kind of a feature, and then the building behind this recesses back for the courtyard, and then you see that exposed industrial bridge there. So we felt like there's a lot of interest, and the mass was broken up here, and that it didn't really need additional change in material.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe Commissioner Calhoun had questions.
I guess my question has to do with the historically significant bathroom. And you might have discussed this before, but if there are any other new commissioners on, maybe they don't know what the historical significance is of this bathroom that's causing quite a bit of concern in its movement and preservation. You want to say a minute something about that, and it's being considered for moving, it's being considered for being demolished. You want to say where you are on that?
Sure, I'm happy to address that. So we certainly do understand the significance of it, and we've studied this in detail, I would say. Unfortunately, given the constraints that we have on the site with access that we're forced to have with the fire access, the location of it is where it is now really is not, we can't maintain it in its existing location. So we've studied a couple of different options. The building size is tough to have it as usable in a form because it's relatively small, but at the same time, it's large enough that putting it elsewhere on the site has presented some problems from a design perspective. One of the solutions that we've come up with that we felt good about was to relocate it from right now. It's on sort of the southern edge of the site, southern edge of the city garage property, and to put it more on the northern edge of the city garage property. We would recreate the building, not in total, so not to rebuild it completely, but to rebuild portions of the wall with the existing stone structure to kind of symbolize the historic bathroom, but to make it so that it could be used as a gathering place and a public space amenity. Ideally for seating on the site, we would create probably some sort of reference to a roof structure with timbers there. The goal would be to have it open enough that it felt open where you could use it, not so closed where it presented a security concern so that, you weren't sure who was there, or, you would be upset going into the space. So that's the idea that we have to maintain it on the site. As I mentioned, we are in conversations with the city of Durham. I spoke with planners and with the project manager for the Beltline. There is an option to potentially relocate it onto the Beltline property, onto the city property, and to recreate it in its existing condition. There are a lot of questions there that really cannot be answered at this time, such as, would the city allow it? What are the logistics behind doing that? What is the timing of the Beltline? How does the timing of the Beltline align with our own construction? So, that is something that we've had conversations with the city about, and that I've pledged to continue to have those conversations. But we felt that it was appropriate to come up with other alternatives, given the timing and the uncertainties around the Beltline construction. We've presented these ideas a couple of times to Preservation Durham and to multiple members of their board and committee, and feel like what is being proposed on the northern side of City Garage with the reconstruction of it in some manner is a good way to recreate to symbolize the significance of it, to use the materials, and to make sure that the story of it is not lost on the site.
All right, good response.
And Commissioner Calhoun, just to let you know, when the demolition application came before this board back in October, the bathroom was one of the leading reasons why this board imposed a 365-day delay with respect to the demolition.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions from the commission for the applicant?
I think Vera sent a message in chat that she had a question.
And so I need to await word from Krista as to whether or not somebody who has signed up to speak has the right to ask a question of an applicant, as opposed to providing evidentiary testimony. And I just got that sign off. We will need to have Ms. Wissington sworn in, and to obtain her consent to participation using this remote platform. And so I will at this time ask that Ms. Wissington turn on her camera if she hasn't already. And there she is. And if I could have Clerk Holmes administer the oath.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Yes.
And Ms. Wissington, do you consent to the proceeding of this case using the remote platform?
Yes, I do.
Great. I understand you have some questions for the applicant?
Yes, yes. And just more or less confirmations. The first representative spoke to the landscaping, and we at the Bullington are very concerned about preserving trees in the area. And we just need assurance that trees that are not needed to ensure the appropriate construction are not just cut down. That's the one quite big question we had. That's one, and I think I have two more. Is that person available to answer that?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
Yes. Although we're cutting down just a minimal of trees, one street tree and five interior trees, we're maintaining and preserving 10 large oak trees along the streetscape and additional 6 large oak trees in front of City Garage in the parking lot. And then we're proposing to replant an additional 14 trees on site. So we are taking down just a few just to be able to have access to the site and construct the building. But we also have existing trees that will be maintained, between our properties with the belt line, and hopefully we will be putting back more than we're taking out.
Okay, thank you. The other issue I wanted to mention is the fact that you have a rendering showing, well, a drawing showing your building as opposed to our building and the height, but it's an approximate drawing. And I'm wondering, why can we not get an actual number to show the actual how tall is one so much taller than the other one? That we would really like to see that.
Yes, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, I can comment on part of that. So we don't have all of the information for your building in terms of the exact building height. You know, we've done some studies based off of what we think that it is. We've also used the city data for what the elevation of your building sits at. So that information is available online. We assume the accuracy of it, but there is the contour lines, you know, come within 1 to 2 foot intervals. So we don't have the exact elevation of your building. We also are awaiting updated survey information on our building. All of that is to say that, you know, it's approximate, but it's very close. You know, we can't say that within it's 6 inches or so, but using the information that we have, Lindsay counted the bricks on your building to come up with the height of how tall your building is relative to our building. So we feel very confident that we are close, but we just wanted to put that disclaimer out there to say that it's approximate because we have not been provided the historical building information of how tall your building actually is.
And you know, if you'd like, I can put you in touch with our property manager who knows those numbers off the top of her head, probably. If you'd like, I can get that information to you, Jeff.
Sure, we'll take it. You and I can touch base again offline.
Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to confirm is that the western side of the building will be concrete except for the first floor. Is that right?
It will be cementitious cladding, so fiber cement panels, and then the masonry turns the corner. So the corner facing corporation has the 3-story masonry. I'm trying to see if we have a view of that. I think Carla, we sent you an image after the fact, and I don't know if it's available to pull up, but we did render that side of the building.
We've seen the corner, but we didn't see the whole western side. And I guess my concern is that, is it all going to be what color? Is it all going to be white, grayish?
It'll be a neutral color.
It will be, and except for the first floor.
Right, and the red masonry will continue along the first floor.
Okay. That ends my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your participation today. If there are no other questions from the commissioners of the applicant, I will give the floor to Mr. Miller. So going once, going twice. Mr. Miller, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you again today. My name is Tom Miller and I represent Preservation Durham, the local nonprofit historic preservation organization in Durham. For the record, I want to repeat that in this case, we have a special interest. We have historic preservation covenants on this property, and we assert that we have standing in the case. But having said that, I want to say that although I'm signed up as an opponent, Preservation Durham, after having spent the last few weeks working very closely with the developer of this site and with their architects and their land planners, we are here to support this certificate of appropriateness with assuming that it is issued with the conditions that that the developers outlined, and I will go over them again before I conclude. I wanted to say that the commission and the applicant have discussed all of the issues that concerned us most. In the broadest sense, I'll go from the broad to the particular. In the broadest sense, we were concerned about how the construction of Building B would impact the historic industrial neighborhood. We felt that the original design, primarily clad with light-colored cementitious panels, could have the effect of dominating the one level, the historic garage building. On the other hand, we were very concerned too that changing the design to something that very closely matched the garage building could cause the building to be lost and become indistinguishable with a much larger neighbor in a same or similar design. So it was important to us to have a modern building that respected the industrial forms and patterns in the neighborhood, especially the garage building, provided contrast to the garage building, but neither dominated it or overwhelmed it with similarities. And I believe that the developer's done a really nice job here. And all of our members of our committee, many of whom are in the development business themselves, were gratified that with the changes that the developer has offered up here. The view that Carla has left up, this is page 54, demonstrates, I think, admirably what it was that we hope to achieve with the design of the new building. And we hope that you agree. So the several aspects here, some of them subtle, the rhythm of the fenestration, which creates a pier and panel appearance, which is common to the industrial buildings, the multi-story industrial buildings elsewhere in the immediate neighborhood, the historic buildings, and also the use of brick, the use of cementitious panel, the dark color on the top, I think does work to reduce the impact of the height of the building as it relates to the garage building. So we're gratified by all of those things. One commission member mentioned the Broady Duke building. Of course, this is the oldest brick building surviving in the city of Durham. If I'm not mistaken, that building actually sits on ground that's a little bit lower than these sites. It's a multi-story brick building, compression architecture. It's also pier and panel, however, the panels are interior. Not all of these buildings need to be the same height. The question is whether or not they complement, the new complements the old in a way that doesn't obscure the historic nature of the older buildings. And we think that the current design or the proposed design here for Building B on this project does complement the historic neighborhood, not just the garage building. Moving on, another one of our concerns was what would become of the back of the garage building when the addition is removed from it. In other words, I believe Jeff used the word, how would we heal the building? The original application did not address this. This current application does. We're content with the idea is that if upon removal of that addition, the former existing back wall is there, then great. If it's not there and something new needs to be put in, we are content with the proposal that the developer has is going in essentially healing the wound that's created by the removal of the addition with appropriate brickwork. But you know, when we pull that building off and we may discover structurally sound original materials, then they propose to save those. These are good alternatives to us, and we're happy moving forward with that. And then the thing that has concerned us most once these other issues were resolved is the disposition of the historic bathroom building. It's a little building. It's actually, its size makes it difficult of reuse. But it's really important in the context of, in Durham, we don't have a lot of architectural artifacts of Durham's past, especially the difficult past of segregation. And that's why the preservation of the building is important to us. If you'll recall, in the original application, the developer proposed to reuse the materials in the project, in paving and those kinds of things. We thought that while we respected that idea, that the identity of the building would be completely lost that way. And we wanted to see the building preserved in some way that the person who sees it can visualize and see the identity of the building and imagine its use and imagine its role in Durham's history. So 4 alternatives have been presented to you. These are alternatives that we worked out with the developer. We'd be content with all of these, and we ask that your order for a certificate of appropriateness allow the developer to choose one from among the 4. The first one, of course, is if it's possible, and it's probably not possible, but we think the order should say that it's possible, is that the building could be preserved where it currently is. From a preservation point of view, this is the best response, but is probably, as a practical matter, the least likely of the 4. The second one is the removal of the building and its reconstruction in the Beltline right-of-way. Jeff has described to you the difficulties with pulling this off. The city, first of all, has to say yes, and the timetable for the city's development of the Beltline property and the developer's Beltline development timetable for the garage property are different. That doesn't, not irreconcilable, but at the current time, it's an option that we would like to pursue. The third and fourth options we think the most practical ones. The developer came to us with a proposal to relocate the building from its close proximity to the garage building at its southern end to a site of similar proximity at its northern end and reconstruct it as a pavilion and a pedestrian amenity, a place where somebody might gather by using vertical elements. Of course, we talk about the bathroom building as being a stone or granite building. It's actually a brick building clad on the exterior with granite pavers. We would like to see, if the pavilion idea is to be done, a design that protects the identity of the building as its historic bathroom. We don't care whether the roof is open or not. It's a parapet roof. You can't tell from the outside anyway. And that's an idea that is nice. It's also good because it keeps the building in close proximity to the garage building that it was meant to serve. And then the fourth idea is something that came up from the landscape architect member of our committee is that, Carla, can you show the overall plan, which is earlier in the development? I'm sorry, I did not write the page number down. The plan from above.
It's page 35.
Oh, thanks. Can we go to 35, please? Carla? Mr. Chair, we seem to have lost Carla.
Can you not see it?
No, it didn't change.
Didn't change.
It didn't change
Really?
for me at any rate.
Okay, I'm looking at page 35 right now and you're not seeing that. Okay.
We're not seeing it. We're seeing 54 still.
Huh.
Oh, well. So
Why don't I stop my share and I'll reshare?
All right, thank you. And in the meantime, Mr. Chair, I'll just go along and say when it comes up, it'll illustrate what I've been saying. So when you look down on the garage building, there it is. Can you blow that up a little bit, or is that possible? So there we go. You can see where it says transformer. Currently, the bathroom building is south of where it says transformer, but not very far. And so a transformer must be put in there. Transformers are not beautiful pieces of equipment. And we want this to be an active, we call it the fire lane, which makes me think of fire trucks sitting there. Let's hope we never see that. But one possibility is to reconstruct the bathroom building as a screen for the transformer. And of course, there are issues that have to be looked into there, but that's a really neat idea in that it's a way of keeping the bathroom building tucked up close to the bathroom building that it used to serve, and also finding a use for it so that its identity stays the same. In other words, a person looking at it could say, yes, we can see that as a bathroom building, but on the inside there would be a transformer. It's an interesting idea, but it's yet to be fully explored. So with those 4 alternatives, we support this application. Our opposition now turns into support. We share the concerns that Ms. Wissington has expressed from the Bullington side of the building. Preservation Durham has concentrated its energies mostly on the east face side of the building because it is the side closest to the building where we are protected by our preservation covenants. The developer has, in adding more brick on the east facing side, has brought that brick all the way around the southern end and did not stop it at the southwest corner, but brought it back around a little bit on the west side. Yeah, see if we can find that. I think this is really important as an architectural device. And it's not only on the southern end, but if I'm not mistaken, it goes back around even further. And we've seen other elevations, although they may not be in the application. I don't know if it's possible at this late date to amend the application to show that, so that the lower level of the building on the west side will have brick, and also this end kind of pavilion or part of the building will have brick on it as well. We share some of the concerns there, but we do note that this building, in terms of its overall elevation, begins lower on the ground, and also although the city has not determined what the design of the beltline will be, it is our hope that the final design of the beltline property will contain a lot of trees. Right now, the trees and undergrowth that are there have occurred naturally as and were not there when the railway was in active use. But I can't imagine the beltline being just wide open without any tree canopy. But that's speculative on my part. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, Preservation Durham urges you to to adopt an order that includes these elements, to approve the design of the new building surrounding grounds on the subject property with the following conditions: that building the new building will substantially match the most recent elevations the developer has shown us and the Bullington folks. And these are at least some of those elevations are the elevations we have seen in the application today. Patching up the back of the garage building where the addition will be removed as the developer has shown in the proposal. And then with regard to the bathroom building, the additions and the other buildings on the site, we asked the Historic Preservation Commission to lift the delay previously ordered on condition that the developer adopt one of the 4 alternative dispositions for the bathroom building. And those are, again, to preserve it in its original location, to remove or reconstruct it to the beltline as a gift to the city, to move or reconstruct the pavilion as an amenity to an appropriate design that preserves the identity of the building architecturally, and to mark it with a sign explaining its context and history, or that they move or reconstruct the building around the transformer to an appropriate design that preserves the identity of the building architecturally, and to mark it again with a sign explaining its context and history. And we ask that the order contain all 4 of these options as alternatives so that the developer may choose the one that works the best at the time the necessary work begins. And it is not unusual for HPC COA orders to contain alternatives. And these are the alternatives that we think are the best for the bathroom building. We appreciate this opportunity to appear before you today and to express our position. And we express our gratitude to Mr. Kurtz and his team for working so closely with us. And I will say that without regard to the action that the commission takes today, Mr. Kurtz has offered, and we have accepted, the opportunity to work together in the future as this project is built out. We think this is a really lovely way of resolving historic preservation issues in our ever-changing city of Durham. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Do we have any questions for Mr. Miller from any members of the commission?
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, as a point of privilege, I have sent to Ms. Rosenberg the text of what I just read you in case somebody wants to use it in the order. We don't have to recall it from what I said. And the other thing is again, if I may, simply as a matter of convenience, Preservation Durham is signed up as an opponent in the next case. We have to do this because the window for signing up is narrower than our window for making decisions at Preservation Durham. We will not be making a presentation in that case. And so I just wanted to explain my absence and rather than have you wondering where I was.
Appreciate that. Again, opportunity for any questions from the commission to Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller, this is Commissioner Goolsby. Let me pose the same question to you from Preservation Durham aspect. Building A, seems like there was a lot of focus on building B, which I appreciate what has been done. But can you lend any view from Preservation Durham on building A and the materials used at that predominant corner?
Yes, and I believe there is a better elevation that we can look at. There it is, while we talk about it. So we spent a lot of time talking about building A, and I will say that, and we talked about building A little bit with the developer, but our internal discussions concerning building A has to do with what we thought the kind of best delineation between buildings A and B is the vehicular and pedestrian pathway, rather than the property line that divides the subject property and the what we call the oil company property to the north. In other words, we wouldn't want building B to have a significant design change on the property line. I think the better way to do it is along the drive here. Also, we note that the historic neighborhood around the garage building exists primarily to the west, to the east, and to the south, and less so to the north. And while this little piece of building A falls within the commission's jurisdiction, and I don't want you to surrender your jurisdiction, at Preservation Durham, we prioritize the things that are asks to this developer. And the developer has responded in a way that was very gratifying to us. And while it might have been something to explore, to look at the materials in this building, I'll point out that at least this elevation, there are no long blank spaces of cementitious panels. One of the things that we would be worried about is having any facade on a building in a historic context that is essentially looks like a patchwork of 4x8 sheets of any material. And of course, that's not happening here. Also, to kind of end where I began, it's important to us that the garage building, as the principal historic building in the area, the garage and the fire tower, that they be distinguishable and immediately recognizable to everyone as historic assets in the area, and that there be contrast between the new and the old. And we think that in this instance, that contrast is preserved. The especially again here, this shows building B as well. We think that the blending that happens there provides contrast and blending. We feel it's a little bit less important with this building to the north, which is clearly part of a newer and more modern structure at the edge of either just inside or just outside the historic area, depending upon your point of view.
Thank you. I appreciate your insights.
Any other questions for Mr. Miller? I have a point of clarification for Carla. Is the final disposition of the bathroom before us today, or is that something that would need to require a separate COA?
Yes, I wanted to address that. So when this application came forward for the November hearing, the treatment of the bathroom really wasn't a part of it, the application initially, and we did not advertise it as such as the disposition of the bathroom or of the condition of delay that was previously placed on it. So I've been communicating with our counsel about this, and I think one proposal we might have is to continue the case. If you wanted to include it in this application, is to continue this application to allow notification with that specific scope in it, and then address it at the next hearing. Or alternatively, you could submit a separate application addressing the disposition of bathroom and that 365-day delay. Yeah.
So am I correct then? Am I understanding, Carla, that because there hasn't been adequate notification to the public about that aspect of the property, it would be inappropriate for us to consider the final disposition of the bathroom?
We believe so, yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, at this point, the rules permit for a rebuttal after an opposition, but Mr. Miller has turned his opposition into support. So I'm not sure there is a need for any rebuttal testimony. Mr. Kurtz, do you agree with that assessment?
I do, yes.
Great. Well, in that event, I'm going to close the public hearing and invite my fellow commissioners to discuss this case.
Mr. Chair, I have a procedural question, if it's appropriate.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
So based upon what Carla was saying, this is something that had concerned me a little bit. So the case in October, the case, we have two cases on this, and this is something that repeats itself. So this will be useful to know for future reference. We had a case for demolition, and now we have a case for a new building. And I suppose it's possible in some situations that those two cases don't overlap, but here they must, because the buildings to be demolished must make way for the new buildings. And so they can't proceed together. They have to be reconciled. And so that's why in our request to you for an order here that there is a lifting of the delay. But I also understand the notice issue that Carla has raised, and it concerns not only the bathroom building, but the addition on the back of the garage building. There's several other buildings on the site, and another small addition at the north end of the garage building. It seems to me that there are two ways of proceeding. One would be either to continue this and allow the developer to modify the application to lift the delay on the demolition of the additions in the buildings, or to have the developer ask for reconsideration of the other case and bring that on. But I don't know procedurally which of those would be the faster alternative. Is there some insight as to that? I just want to know so that I can report back to my committee.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. The faster would be to continue the case so that it could go just 1 month more. I will say, personally, I would feel more comfortable having a concrete proposal as to the bathroom. something that the commission can discuss and decide for themselves. But, you know, you would also like need, that was including that as part of this application, you would need approval on that point. And it's up to the commission as to how likely they would be to approve to remove that delay based on the evidence of 4 different options, you know, presented. So that month could be used to fine tune and give a more concrete plan as to what will happen with the bathroom, but it will also give that, it would be probably about 2 weeks from now that we would advertise for the January hearing. And so it would be heard in January and could potentially, you know, be adjudicated in January. Whereas if this were a separate application, it would be February likely.
Let me turn it over to the commission for discussion on elements that don't involve the bathroom. I'd like to just identify if there are concerns among the commission members about the proposal, that if we consider a continuance, all other issues are identified and can be addressed once we reconvene in January. So I'm going to open the floor to commission members to express any concerns, hesitations they have about the proposal as it's been provided to us.
This is Commissioner Goolsby. A couple of things give me hesitancy on this project, and I think they're minor compared to everything else that's been presented. And I appreciate the work that the various groups have done on this project to find some agreements about how to really honor the existing landmark structures on the property. So, but my concerns are primarily from the guidelines. One being the use of vinyl windows on the project. My understanding, I think the stance has been that vinyl windows are not allowed on these projects. Not only particularly not on street facing, but I think on the whole project. And I think it would be more honoring to the Bullington building, which is going to have views of this project, to not have vinyl windows. I think we also asked for more durable than the vinyl can allow for. Second is building A. I appreciate everyone's comments on that, and I agree with a lot of what's being said. I will say that building A does have a predominant view on the street face, particularly if I'm thinking about the corner of Gear and Washington and being able to see the landmark structure. I don't think there's anything we can do about pushing the building back or trying to open it up. So I'm willing to understand what we have here in terms of the massing of the building and where it sits on the site. And I appreciate all the glass that has been put on the building. I agree with what Tom said about the reduction in the amount of cement fiber that's on that corner. And I can agree in terms of using different materials, not trying to use the brick throughout. I don't have a specific point there to say it must be brick or what, but I wonder if just a different color of the cement fiber might alleviate that to me. If it was a darker paint instead of white is what's shown in this elevation here, something that would help that go away, and the city garage building kind of stand out a little bit more. Kind of like what you're doing with building B, you're using the darker color and it helps that building recede a little bit more. And lastly, from the guidelines, there is some notes about not using traditionally residential materials, so lap siding being one of them. And we have approved buildings that have lap siding on them in the downtown district. But I think it still warrants the discussion each time. And on a case-by-case basis are we going to forego that discussion or that point to say the overall project, they're meeting the criteria. One word that does stand out to me in that piece is predominant building material. And I think they, in my opinion, have met that, but I think it's warrant discussion with this group just to make sure we're all on the same page that there will be lap siding on this building facing the street, and the guidelines do make a note of it.
Andy, could you?
Overall, I'll just say overall, I'm in agreement of moving this project forward and would vote yes, but I do have concerns about the vinyl windows particularly. And I think the other 2 points are more preference.
And is there a particular criterion that you're concerned about with respect to the lap siding issue?
Yes, let me pull it back up here. B4C.
Sure that you're looking at the criteria for landmarks.
Yes, well, I think we go back to the downtown district, right?
Well, this is not actually in the downtown district.
So now I'm confused by one of the statements early on in the report. Let's see.
It's in the downtown design district.
Let's see. So if I'm looking at page 2 of the report, per A6 in the landmarks, the new construction proposal shall follow the downtown non-contributing section of the criteria.
Okay, typo then. I apologize for that. I don't know. Yeah, apologize. That's it should be landmark.
Okay. So we should just be sticking to the landmark section.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. Yes, no, that's correct, actually. We decided because, well, yeah, I think we decided that that was the closest. Yeah, in this case, because it is new construction. But yeah, it's the most similar setting, but it's not technically in the downtown district.
So we are going to follow the non-contributing criteria.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So the section I'm referring to is downtown non-contributing B4 and point number C. That's on page 68 of my my criteria, which reads, it is not appropriate to install traditionally residential materials. Give some examples, but it says as a predominant building material.
Mm.
And so I don't think they're using it as a predominant, but I just want to make sure we as a group are in agreement on that.
I'm with you now. I appreciate that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
For the record, I will share Andy's concern about the vinyl windows. I think this has come up on a couple of our relatively recent COAs. And so I am worried about the precedential value. I certainly am cognizant of what we've heard from the applicant about how the cost savings on using vinyl, permits greater use of brick masonry. But I do share Andy's concern about making an exception that could have precedential value that we don't want it to have. And so I'm curious to hear if any of the commissioners have or share a similar concern, a concern about Andy's other 2 points, or any other concerns that we should put on the table now.
Commissioner Johnson, that was one of my minor concerns as well, but the applicant did speak to the fact that the vinyl windows were not the, I guess, the regular windows we see on residential properties, but the high quality. And I'm guessing, and maybe this is a question for the applicant, are these vinyl windows for commercial grade vinyl windows? And I don't know, I think I just need more information about what is meant by high quality.
I'll reopen
But I do
the,
have slight concern about the vinyl windows as well, because it's typically not accepted in a historic district or for historic.
I'll reopen the public hearing briefly for the limited purpose of permitting Ms. Crutchman to further address the issue.
Yes, these vinyl windows are commercial quality, and they are they're actually, I think, twice as expensive as your typical vinyl. They have the dark color retention that's applied in the factory, and so they have an extended warranty and are actually really durable. So,
and if I may ask Commissioner Johnson again, what I see some spec information, but as it compares to aluminum windows, I think we generally understand the durability and quality of aluminum windows. Is it in good comparison to aluminum windows as far as durability? And how do we know that? What's the metric used?
I think it's kind of a tough question because they're different materials with different qualities, and aluminum windows can range in quality as well. I will say that aluminum windows they're metal, they can become dented. There are things that will require them to be replaced, and if the color fades, it's pretty difficult to refinish that. Which is why you see a lot of aluminum windows that are older that are kind of in disrepair. So I don't know if you can compare them apples to apples. But one of the other qualities of vinyl is that it doesn't conduct heat as much as aluminum does. And so there's more energy efficiency. Obviously, the aluminum windows that are used in historic buildings no longer meet the energy code. So you do have to get an aluminum window that has built-in thermal break, which is made up of parts rather than a solid aluminum window like you would see in a historic building anyway. I know that's not necessarily answering your question, but I think the warranty, we'd have to dig into the warranty information and study if there are studies with vinyl comparison to aluminum to see the differences.
Andy, you had your hand up for a moment, but then took it down.
So something's going on with my Zoom, but I actually do have a question here. So you did allude to the fact that it's a secondary application for the vinyl windows, this process of making them a dark bronze. So walk us through that process. Is it a white vinyl window that is constructed and then it's a secondary piece that's put on to the vinyl window? And a couple of follow-up questions to that will be, what is the durability of that secondary cladding? What happens when if that color finish fades over time? Yeah, we just need to dig into this a bit more for our understanding.
Yes, it is not an applied finish, and it is an integral factory kind of chemical process to give the vinyl an integral dark color. which is why it is a good bit more expensive than the typical, white or beige vinyl windows that you see on single family homes. It comes with a long time color retention warranty.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just add, in respect to the question of commercial versus residential windows, the size of the windows that are being proposed for this building are not common residential windows. We've gone with a much larger commercial grade window that is more reflective of the existing buildings around the site and to sort of reflect that historical warehouse character. So these are not your traditional residential grade windows, much larger, more expensive. And as Lindsay has mentioned, sort of the integral color combination that is all factory done. We do choose them because of their longevity and because of the durability within a multifamily application.
Thank you very much. I'm going to reclose the public hearing and resume the conversation among commissioners. Does anyone else want to speak at all to Andy's concern about the lap siding, whether or not anyone is concerned that it might be predominant and therefore potentially in conflict with one of our criterion? Does anyone have any comments about the color for the cementitious fiberboard at the end of building A? I think we have exhausted conversation among the commissioners. Where we have things right now is at least a proposal for consideration by the applicant. We typically do not like imposing our will upon the applicant. If they want to be heard and have a vote taken on their proposal as it exists, that's something we can certainly move forward with. But I think there would be value, as has been suggested by Carla, to take a 1 month timeout, try to tie together the proposal as it currently sits with the bathroom options that have been discussed, put us in a position of potentially removing that 365-day delay and putting you all in a position of having everything you need to move forward with this project. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Kurtz or anyone else who wants to speak on the potential for a continuance to next month.
Thank you. We certainly appreciate the consideration and we appreciate the comments. We understand that, at this time, we would not be able to get a decision on the demolition and the removal of the restrictions on the demolition. We feel that what is being proposed for the location of the bathroom, is a good solution, and that we could move forward with that. We appreciate the option and what we had presented to continue to evaluate other opportunities, including off-site. What we would like to do is to continue to move forward with approval of the plans as presented today and to evaluate the options. If there's an alternative off-site, we could do that, and that could be part of the application, a revised application for the demolition that would remove the 365-day wait period. But we would go ahead and continue to keep those two pieces separate.
Krista has her hand up, our staff attorney.
Thank you. Krista Kugro, City Attorney's Office. I think that this is what I just heard the applicant say, but after speaking internally with staff, I think our recommendation is not that the two sort of concepts, this new construction and then revising the delay, be combined in an upcoming meeting, but rather the revisions to the delay and anything related to that needs to come as a separate application before the commission. So that's our recommendation, just for your consideration as you all kind of decide what to do next.
We appreciate that, Krista. Carla, you are on mute.
Sorry, just to clarify, if this application were approved today as it is, but without the bathroom, it would just need to wait the full 365 days before it would be implemented. Now it's probably 289 days.
Yeah.
Something.
But no, I think that's right, Carla. And so I think it's still beneficial for the applicant to, continue to work on the bathroom issue and come back to us with a separate COA. And, it sounds like you have secured buy-in from Preservation Durham, which is an important step. And I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more, perhaps a more refined proposal in the form of a formal COA in the months ahead to move that process forward. But on Chris's recommendation, and I think we've exhausted here discussion among commissioners, I'm prepared to move forward with a potential vote on this. First, I would like to have a staff recommendation.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Staff would recommend approval of the application, removing disposition of the bathroom since that won't have been decided yet. And then also supporting the use of vinyl windows. I'm on just those elevations that do not face the landmark structure, understanding that this is not actually a district property and doesn't set precedents for other district properties in the future.
I might be a little bit confused about that on a couple of points. First, there's nothing to be removed from this application with respect to the bathrooms, right? Because it wasn't part of the application to begin with?
Well, there's notes on the drawings about what's going to happen with the bathroom.
Okay. And then are you suggesting we put a condition with respect to the use of the vinyl and limiting the...
No condition needed. I was just clarifying my stance on that.
Okay.
Yeah, just for your information for the commission, I support it in this one case, this one, landmark case.
Is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
Matt, I nominate you to make a motion. I think you've taken notes closely enough to do it well.
I'm going to try to do the best I can with respect to the bathroom issue, and we'll ask for any revisions that city staff or city council might think, city attorney thinks might be warranted. The Durham Historic Preservation Commission finds that in the case COA 2100078, 501 Washington Street, new construction, the applicant is proposing new construction and site work on a landmark property. 2 buildings, each measuring approximately 63 feet in height, will be constructed with brick masonry, cementitious fiberboard panels, and metal panels, and will be connected by a 5-level walkway bridge structure. 2-lane pedestrian walkways will be installed just behind the landmark structure and paved with concrete pavers. Therefore, the conclusion of law is that the proposed addition and alterations are consistent with the historic character and qualities of the historic district and are consistent with the historic properties local review criteria, specifically those listed in the staff report. And the Durham Historic Preservation Commission approves the certificate of appropriateness for case COA 2100078, 501 Washington Street, new construction, with the following conditions. Number 1, the improvements shall be substantially consistent with the plans and testimony presented to the commission at this commission hearing and attached to the COA, with the exception that any notes referencing the disposition of the existing bathroom shall be disregarded for the purposes of this application and shall be considered in a separate COA to be provided by the applicant. Number 2, the improvements may require additional approvals from other city or county departments or state or local agencies. The applicant is responsible for obtaining all required approvals relating to building construction, site work, and work in the right of way. And 3, a compliance inspection shall be performed immediately upon completion of the work approved herein.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Clerk Holmes, could we please have a roll call vote?
Okay. Chair Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
No.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Approve.
Vice Chair Goolsby,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Commissioner Kreger,
Approved.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Approved. Approved.
Motion pat. Thank you. Motion passes 5-2.
Thank you all very much for your efforts and for your time today. We look forward to seeing you again sometime soon to finalize the plan for the bathroom.
Thank you.
And happy holidays to everyone. Can we do a 5-minute break, y'all, and come back for our final case?
I'll be leaving you, but everybody have a great holiday.
You too, April.
Thank you. Have a great holiday.
Bye.
See y'all back in 5 minutes. Chris, are you on the line?
I am.
Who do we have for 518 Morehead Avenue?
We have Blake Goodman, Cindy Hoffman, and Linda Lavis with us today.
Okay.
And Tom Miller, as he mentioned, was signed up in opposition, but it looks like he signed off, as he mentioned in the last case.
Great. Thank you.
And I'm just waiting on Linda Lavis to come in to the room. I've got 2 on our attendees list. And just for everyone else, commissioners, some of you left your cameras on, so you might have to re-enable your cameras as you return. I disabled them while we were on break.
So Jonathan is not here. Katie has recused. April has also stepped away. So we have 6, correct?
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 6.
So we're waiting on Tad to come back.
Mhm.
And Chair, this is Chris Peterson again. While we wait for Tad, Linda Lavis, I see that you have 2 names signed up. Do you know if the other one, if you shared your link with someone else, or if you just have one for as a second device?
So Linda responded that she shared the link with her laptop in the chat box. All right, all of the commissioners are back. Mr. Goodman's on video, Ms. Hoffman's on video. Can we get Ms. Lavis on video?
A request has been sent for Ms. Oh, here she comes. There we go.
Hello,
Hey, Ms. Lavis.
how are you?
Doing fine.
Yeah, so I just sent the link to my home computer because my work computer doesn't have a camera.
I'm glad you're all here. We will now proceed to hear case COA 2100084, 518 Morehead Avenue, new construction. Before we hear this case, is there anybody on this commission other than Commissioner Hamilton who has a conflict of interest in hearing the case? Seeing and hearing from nobody, we'll proceed. If we could please have the oath administered, and if we could have Mr. Goodman, Ms. Hoffman, and Ms. Lavis in that order affirm.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
I swear.
I swear.
I swear.
Thank you all very much. And in the same order, could we please obtain on the record your consent for this hearing to proceed using this remote platform?
I consent.
I do.
I consent.
Great. Thank you all very much. If we could have a staff summary, please, Carla.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case COA 21-00084, 518 Morehead Avenue, new construction. The applicant is Jay Davis, represented by Linda Lavis. The owner is Durham Morehead Residence LLC and Edgebrook Associates LLC. It's located on the north side of Morehead Avenue between Vickers Avenue and South Duke Street. Zoned office and institutional, and it's a non-contributing, parcel in the Morehead Hill Historic District. The applicant is proposing to construct 68 townhouses within 11 new structures on the vacant parcel, along with associated site work of landscaping and hardscaping. I'd like to introduce this staff report into the record and invite Ms. Lavis and colleagues to present their case.
And I'll jump in if I may. This is Blake Goodman. I represent the developer and owner of 518 Morehead Avenue, Durham Morehead Residences LLC. We're excited to be able to present this project to you all and appreciate your time and allowing us to appear before you. As is laid out within the staff report, this site is a vacant parcel with no existing improvements on the site. Prior to us purchasing the site, the previous owners did appear before you and successfully receive a COA for the creation of 4 large apartment units or 4 large apartment buildings that were intended to be delivered as condos. That was going to contain 130 units and was going to consist of 4 full floor units or full floors and then a 5th floor roof. What we are seeking to propose is an alternative strategy. We hope that it will be deemed preferable. We are going, as Carla mentioned, it's a townhome strategy. So we will be reducing the density on the site and reducing the height of the buildings by a story, going from 130 units down to 68 units and an amenity clubhouse on the site. And yeah, I mean, the basic aim in going that route is to be sensitive into the context that we find our site in the larger Morehead Hill district, historic district, and try to create a scale and a style that is reflective and respectful of that context. So with that, I'll turn it over to Linda Lavis, our architect, who can really get us into the details.
And feel free to call out any page numbers and I'll jump directly to the page number.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Could you go to page 15, please? All right, so the Morehead Hill Historic District has an eclectic mix of scale of buildings and architectural styles. Some of the first residences in the neighborhood were very large, grand homes, such as the Greystone Inn, which is the neighbor immediately to our west. And that is shown in the top center photograph. There's also some smaller homes that were built later on smaller lots. And the architectural styles range from Queen Anne to colonial to Tudor to Foursquare. So there's a lot of precedent to work off of in the district. And so we studied the precedents before we put pen to paper and noticed that a lot of the buildings have some similar themes, but then there's also unique characteristics to different buildings found throughout the district. The Greystone Inn in particular, starting with that, you can see there's some very strong vertical elements with the chimneys. There is pop dormers at the roof. There's a very strong cornice line underneath the roof, a very deep, thick trim, and relatively steep hip roof forms. Then we also have some other buildings throughout the district which are a little bit more modest, that have also steep gables, some pop dormers with a shed roof, pop dormers with gable roofs, We've got some on that bottom right image of that very large Craftsman style home. You can see the thick banding again up in the gable, and some very intricate detailing. If you look at the stone building on the left of the site, you can see we've got some more popped gable dormers as well as some strong vertical elements there as well. There's also a variety of exterior facade materials. We've got some stone, there's lap siding, there's brick, and a variety also of colors, as you can see by the bright blue in the bottom right-hand corner. There's different roof forms. There's flat roofs, there's gable roofs, there's hip roofs, there's shallow pitches, and then some very steep pitches. Additionally, with the windows tend to be double hung or single hung, and the patterns tend to range from 1/1 to 12/1 to 12/12. So there's a large variety of interpretations of window styles, except that they are largely in the residential buildings, they're largely either a fixed or casement looking window or a double hung. And let's see, massing wise, the buildings tend to be 2.5 stories, a lot of the larger ones, with the 1/2 story being the upper pop dormers at the roof line. And the variety of scales can be seen as well, with the Greystone Inn that just sort of spreads out over the site. And then some of these more modest single family homes as seen in the upper right-hand corner of the sheet. Moving on to, probably want to look at sheet 18. So this is a rendering of the view of our proposed project along Morehead Avenue, kind of looking towards the northeast. So the Greystone would be on the left of this image, kind of out of this image. So we're proposing to use, as far as like the massing goes, we're doing 2.5 to 3 stories. Many of the upper levels are kind of hidden in the eaves with a popped gable or shed dormer. We're using a variety of roof forms and roof pitches. We're sticking with basically our steepest pitch is a 10 and 12 gable roof. We're using some 6 and 12s for the pop dormers, or some salt box configurations that are further in on the site. And then a shallow roof or standing seam porches, roof canopies at the front of the buildings. We've also got a variety of materials. We're going to have masonry at some of the corners, and then basically as the foundation all throughout the site. We're going to use lap siding in 2 different exposure faces, some board and batten siding up in the gables. And we're going to use some vertical elements, which they're not actually chimneys, but we're going to use those as usable space within the residences, but they're going to appear as a reference to a chimney found throughout the district. And we also plan on using some deep horizontal banding, which you can see the building on the left as we separate between materials. The lighter gray is a lap siding, and the gray and the first and second floors is lap siding, and that's separated by a thick horizontal band with vertical board and batten above that. We've got stoops that help bring the living level up above the street, and some of the stoops are more shallow, about a 4'6" deep by 4 foot to 5 foot wide front porch. And then we have on the corner element, that second building, you can see we've got a 6 foot deep rocking chair type porch. For the windows, we're mostly using double hungs that are going to be ganged in pairs or triples. When they're triple windows, we're going to put a piece of trim between each separate unit. Some of the windows will have transoms up above. And then at some of the dormer windows, those will either be fixed or casement windows that are just a single unit, not a 1/1 type of double hung window that's being used elsewhere. The buildings will, or the site slopes from front to back. So the garages will be at the rear, and the, actually, if we want to look at the plan, let me go to sheet 24. And you can see plan-wise where we've got the back of curb and then a tandem parking space and then the garage, so that the actual garage door will not be visible from the drive aisles, and definitely not visible from the primary street of Morehead Avenue. And if we want to look at sheet 884, we've got an image of the gray stone next to a model of our building type 2, which is also right along Morehead Avenue. You can see the compatibility with some similar elements. We're not trying to imitate the gray stone, but just trying to pick up on some of the elements in the gray stone and some of the conceptual forms, as well as other buildings throughout the district. Also, we have the primary entrances. If we want to go back to sheet 18, the primary entrance for all of the buildings that face Morehead Avenue is on Morehead Avenue. And that will be, help unify this development and weave it into the existing neighborhood. And I will hand the floor over to Cindy, who will be able to speak about the site and the site features.
Thank you, Carla. Okay, thank you, Linda. Carla, if you could go ahead and turn to page 8. My name is Cindy Hoffman, representing the owners of 518 Morehead Avenue property, and I'm a professional landscape architect with over 20 years experience and senior project manager at Stewart here in Durham. The location of our site is located 518 Morehead Avenue. It's about 3.89 acres. The Greystone Inn that Linda mentioned is located to the west of our property. It's a local historic landmark. The I-147 ramp is located to the north of our site, and a small dental office building is to the east. The site is part of the Morehead Hill Historic District. It's non-contributing and is currently vacant. Turn to page 19. The site features include a mix of open pasture, grass, and hardwood trees with understory vegetation. A stand of trees and understory vegetation are along the northern part of the property adjacent to the 147 ramp and to the east. And there are some individual trees along Morehead Avenue. The topography of the site has a grade change of over 24 feet. So there is a depressed area to probably in the mid-western part of the site. So the applicant proposes new construction of 68 townhomes with 11 buildings or structures and an accessory one-story clubhouse structure to the rear of the site. Proposing removing some existing trees, 10 along Morehead Avenue. We've really tried to save them, but looking at grading and construction, they likely will not survive. So we'd like to propose that we will replace these trees with 10 new street trees. What page are we on? You're on the right page. Replace these trees with 10 new trees, a 4-inch caliper, and the UDO only requires 2.5-inch caliper. And go to page 23. To develop the site, propose the removal of 20 internal trees to the site and replacing these with 20 trees internally throughout the site and on the streetscape. The existing trees to remain and a tree save area to the north along 147. That's a hatch area that you see to the north there. On page 20. Here we go. The buildings are set back 15 feet along Morehead Avenue. That's 22 feet from the back of curb with frontage doors and walks facing the street. The 20-foot drive aisles, pedestrian walks are internal to the site with trees and street lights. The street lights are about 10 to 12 foot height, pedestrian scale by Duke Energy, some of their fixtures. And the driveway and parking, as Linda talked about, will be made or composed of permeable pavers that we will manage stormwater management through that. Page 21. When we talked about the grade change that you saw in the existing conditions, but the topography change with a grade of over 24 feet, we're proposing filling depressed areas to improve grades and drainage of the site. Approximately, it varies from 9 to 12 feet of fill on the site. Also, you can see limits of disturbance over onto the adjacent property. With their permission, we're also proposing filling of the depressed area with their permission. That just helps overall fill in the hole, alleviate retaining walls for both properties. The adjacent property, well, then the existing conditions would be to replant the area with grass to their original condition. The Greystone Inn may come through in the future with a separate COA, but that's not a part of this application, even though we're kind of helping their site out and filling the depressed area. There is a small, on page 22, there are two small retaining wall areas. The cast in place is on the north side of the site toward the rear. And then there's a brick veneer wall to match the buildings along the eastern property line. There is some fencing on top of the walls to prevent fall prevention, and it'll be a black metal picket fence. And then page 23. Wrong page. Maybe it's supposed to be the landscape one. Let's see if I can find it. It's not page 23. Hold on just a minute. I'll find it. Well, it's my page 23 in the report. I'm not sure. That's existing. That's the site plan. There's the grading. 22, 23. Yeah, I'm not seeing this. Well, anyways.
This one has your plant schedule on it. Are you seeing my page 23?
I see it now. I was looking for the street trees down there and I couldn't see them. I guess it's small on my screen. I apologize. I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. Well, we're maintaining the vegetative buffer on the north side. The vehicular use areas, vegetative screening at the fire truck turnarounds in the western north side, and their plantings along the facade of the buildings facing Grandstone Inn. They'll be added, the quantity and variety to be determined as an enhanced landscaping. We're also screening of mechanical equipment. The HVAC will be screened with evergreen head shrubs. And so that's our request. And in the spirit of the Morehead Hill Historic District, we're seeking to develop the 518 Morehead Avenue property to correspond with the mixed-use residential neighborhood. Feel like the development of the site will allow for better integration with the city's plans of infilling of vacant lots within the urban tier, and the proposed use, architectural style, and building materials are in keeping with the historic district. We appreciate your time and consideration of this major certificate of appropriateness for construction of 68 new townhomes on the 518 Morehead Avenue property. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodman, Ms. Hoffman, and Ms. Lavis. Are there any questions from the commissioners for our applicant today?
This is Commissioner Goolsby. It would be helpful if someone from the team could point me to the 2D elevations of the buildings that are on Morehead Avenue. It looks like it'd be the 3 kind of directly street facing and then one side elevation that follows the property line back. But if you could direct me to those elevations.
Sheet 14.
Okay. Are there others?
No, those 4 buildings.
Okay.
So in between building 1 and 2, and between building 2 and 3 is a drive aisle.
Got you. Thank you. I missed that sheet. I appreciate you pointing that out to me.
Oh, no problem.
Any other commissioners? I'll raise a question about the setback and the tree loss on Morehead. When we approved the COA that was referenced at the beginning of Mr. Goodman's presentation, I believe we approved it with a setback that was 20 feet, not 15 feet as is currently proposed. And that setback allowed for certain of the trees on Morehead to be maintained. Could somebody speak to why the overall site plan required the buildings to come 5 feet closer to Morehead? And is that the reason why the trees on Morehead are not able to be salvaged?
I'll jump in and Cindy can maybe speak to some of the details as well. But I mean, the basic intent from a formalistic standpoint was to have a continuous street wall. So we had the row of homes on the west side of the site, and we wanted to be able to have a consistent face on that primary Morehead Avenue face, you know, just for presence within the neighborhood. So that was the main driving force as to why. I think, as Cindy kind of spoke to, and I don't want to speak for her, but the concern a bit was, you know, just in the course of getting all of the municipal services off Morehead Ave onto the site, that, you know, a lot of those trees were at risk anyways. And obviously we seek to preserve as many as we possibly can, and we will absolutely replace any that are lost. But yes, that was the main driving force to answer your question.
And I'll just add, yeah, it is the intent to try to save some, but we want to be realistic too with the walks and the utilities and really the grading of the site. There's a possibility that some of the trees would not survive, but would be replaced.
And I will point out, if I may, just, I don't think we highlighted this point, but, you know, one of the differences of the strategy that we're employing here versus the previous reviewed proposal was we're creating 2 green spaces within the site that'll allow for us to introduce a lot of new trees within the overall community, so that we think we'll have a good opportunity to really kind of reestablish the canopy, you know, of the district within the site as well, not just on the street.
Thank you. Fellow commissioners, any further questions for the applicant?
Yes, Commissioner Gould, I do have some follow-up questions. So the elevation you point me to doesn't seem to align with the rendering that's shown on that we were talking about earlier. nor does it match the axon on sheet 17. So I'm having difficulty about knowing which is correct and which we would be approving in terms of materials that are seen from Morehead. So for example, in this rendering on the second building, well, let's just take the first building to the left. There's a vertical element, I assume a chimney, shown on that elevation. That does not show up in your 2D elevation. And then to the building to the right, there's bricks shown at the, what I'm guessing is the first story, but on the 2D elevation, it's all lap siding.
The rendering is the most current. Or the rendering is, I guess, what you would be approving.
Andy, could you provide a plan sheet for, not the rendering, but for the elevation that you're referring to?
We were talking about sheet 14. I think that's 14 in the package.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. If any drawings need to be reconciled, they can be submitted after, approval, if there's an approval, and I can issue that with the COA.
Okay.
We can do that. Yeah.
And then I do have a question for city staff. Ms. Hoffman talked about improvements to the Greystone site, and what we're doing today is only for the property where these townhomes would be. We're not approving anything that would be done to that adjacent property, correct?
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department, that's correct. That would require a separate COA, likely at the minor level if it were found to be consistent with the criteria, which would be to preserve the natural topography of that site. And so if they weren't able to secure that approval and it rendered this current COA ineffective, then that would be an issue. But that, because it's on a separate parcel, would be treated under a separate COA application.
Okay, thanks for confirming that.
Any other comments, questions from commissioners for the applicant? All right. Seeing no hands raised, hearing no.
I have a quick question
Okay.
about the roof slope. I think it's the furthest building on the left that we're looking at right now that has the deck cut in and the roof breaks. Can you all speak to how that does or doesn't fit with what we see in the nearby neighborhood?
Well, do you mean where this this roof cuts back? Or the one beyond? Because the single line beyond is a pop dormer.
Oh, okay. I felt like I saw, I'm not seeing on the screen right now, but I thought I saw somewhere in the materials a spot where there's like a deck cut into a slope line. If that doesn't exist at all, just ignore me.
We do have roof decks at the back of all of the buildings. Right. So yes, on that far left.
Yeah, like
this
that.
is building 2, which is the second one that you can see on the perspective drawing.
Uh-huh.
So in the back of the building, there's a roof deck that comes off that top level.
And the roof slope coming down to that deck would look like what?
There is a, let's see. So there's, it looks like I can annotate here. Is that correct? Like,
I don't know that we could see it if you did.
Do you see me draw that line?
Oh, look at that. Yes.
It worked. Okay, great. So this ridge right here, actually, let's see. Let me look through this stat and if we can find the side elevation, that might be the best way to depict this. All right, if you want to go to sheet 49. Clear this.
Yeah, that's what I wanted
So
to ask
the
about.
elevation that we were looking at, we have this sort of salt box condition here. And this is actually, this was not the side we were looking at. The side we were looking at, the gable continues. The gable roof continues all the way from front to back. And on the opposite.
This is
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a good one to look at. This is the one I had the question about. So on the image that we're looking at, the side elevation on the left right here, there's the slope at the front building, and then the slope at the back gets cut in half, and then the roof deck is there. That's right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And I guess, so then my question is, how does that sort of slope cut, I don't have the architectural words for this, but the slope cut partway off for a flat roof deck, how does that jive or not with other things we see in the neighborhood?
Let's see, if we go back to sheet 14, I think it is, 15. So the two images on the left-hand side, it's somewhat similar in that there's an existing historic structure that has a roof deck that got added to the rear, like around the corner. So we're doing something somewhat similar. None of these will be visible from Morehead Avenue, though. It's all internal to the site.
Just to clarify also, what you referred to as the slope cutting in half, that is what Ms. Lavis had referred to as a salt box style roof.
Thank
when
you.
it has.
One more clarifying question. On the example that we're looking at here, the historic photo from the neighborhood, the original roof is there, and then the flat roof deck is tacked on as an addition, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
So yeah, it looks like I'm just kind of blowing this up on my screen. There's a gable, and there's a very low pitched roof adjacent to it, and then a roof deck with a pergola over it. So kind of a combination of roof forms back there.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Commissioners, any other questions for our applicant? Commissioner Calhoun, Commissioner DeBerry, Commissioner Gregor? Nope. Got a head shake from Tad. Head shake from Tom. Commissioner Calhoun, you okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, just wanted to be sure. All right. Hearing no other questions from commissioners, is there anyone else present who would like to speak for or against the case? If not, we will close the public hearing and discuss amongst the commissioners. So anyone who would like to lead us off?
Continue with the thing I just started. And I want to hear the other commissioners' opinions. The deck where the roof slope, and help me use the right words here, gets partway cut off feels awkward to me. But those of you with professional expertise, tell me if.
So the sort of salt box style for the roof?
It's not the style. I get that salt box is a style. It's, if we look at the image from the existing house nearby, there's a complete roof that makes a peak and comes down on both sides, and then an additional deck is added. Yeah, that one. Let's stop there for a minute. So the original building house there on the right side of that picture looks like it's stone, and it has a roof that's like this, and then the addition with the deck is there. And what we're talking about in this proposal is a roof that's complete on one side but not the other, and then stops halfway through for the deck. And it feels aesthetically funny to me.
Is all that different from the house we see in the sheet COA-AO.02? I can't remember what sheet it is, Carla, but yeah, on the far right in the middle. It's not exactly the same, but you have a pretty sharp pitched roof that sort of continues above the door, but it's much shorter on the right-hand side of the roof heading towards the tree.
Yeah. I drew. This is the old one that we have the example with silhouette wise, and then the roof deck's over here, but the new one, it's this cutoff right here that feels funny to me.
There will be, I believe, eaves. It won't drop like precipitously from that slope. My understanding from the drawing is there would be an eave line. Maybe Ms. Levis could clarify. It would give it a more finished look. What page was were the 2D drawings that we were looking at that showed that side?
49.
49. So right here you can see this eave poking out. So it doesn't fall straight down. It'll, go in and have that eave and then come down, similar to over here.
Yeah. So that's my question to the other commissioners. Does this situation bother anybody else, or is it just me? And if it's only me, let's move on.
No, Laura, I think you got something to question about. At first, I thought this didn't exist on the buildings along Morehead Avenue, but looking closer at the plans, this building type 2, this condition would be visible from Morehead Avenue. If someone from the design team could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we would see it in the opposite view of the rendering that you showed us earlier, coming in the opposite direction on Morehead Avenue.
Let's see, let's go back to sheet 14. Yes, so the area that you would see it is between, between building 3 and building 4 that occurs, and that from that area, from that angle, that would be very difficult to see because those buildings are closer together. So that you would never see that elevation straight on or really, much at all. But the right-hand side of building 2, you would see that. But if we could change up that side elevation to look more like this elevation, where the gable runs straight through from front to back.
And I guess what we're responding to is, it seems like in this condition, the roof forms aren't resolved. That you're kind of taking several different roof forms from the neighborhood and pulling them all together into this one project. And in this condition where you got a flat element and a gable element, some more resolution, I think would help and bringing it more appropriate to the district.
I don't know if I'm allowed, am I able to jump in and make a suggestion?
Yeah, I'll reopen the public hearing for that purpose.
All right, I appreciate it. I think it might be helpful, and Linda, let me know if I'm suggesting we look at the wrong elevation, but if you go to page 50, please. So this is like, basically we're looking at a condition on the side. So now we're looking, this gives you the top image on this page, shows you the front on exposure to the backside of that house. So the roof profile that you're saying stops short. So, you know, basically what Jay Davis has done here is, like, if you're just looking at it on that side elevation, you do see that cutoff. But then what they tried to do when you're looking at it front on is that you're kind of creating some variability within here. So it's not just a consistent line of interrupted roof. I just thought that it might be helpful to see this to kind of understand, you know, when we're looking at it straight on, like what the condition truly is. Because yeah, on the oblique, it comes across a little bit awkward. Thank you.
Thanks, Blake.
So I'm going to reclose the public hearing and return to comments of the commissioners. Laura, you're muted.
Is this a side elevation of the same thing, or is this a different instance somewhere else?
That is a different instance somewhere else, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, so Andy, thank you for using the word resolution. I think that might have been what I was searching for. And Linda, I like what you suggested about adjusting the gable so it goes all the way back instead of having this, like, yeah, this feels gap-toothed to me or something. But Blake, I see what you're saying. Doing this kind of thing achieves some variation across the full back of the building. So I get that and appreciate that effort as well. So I'm going to stop here. Let's move on.
Well, I guess the question for both Laura and for Andy, anything about the way the roof has been designed and on any buildings or in any locations cause a significant enough concern for you that your support for the COA on the whole would be compromised?
I think this is Commissioner Goolsby. For me, when I think about buildings in the district, I think about more simplicity in the roof forms, where I think this adds a level of complexity to have one side of the building be one thing and the other something completely different. And so we have two sides of the building that I would think in more appropriate treatment would be to bookend, have similar treatment on each side, than to have two different roof shapes on opposing sides. That's my opinion. Open to be convinced otherwise.
Carla, you have any additional thoughts?
Well, I guess typically the salt box orientation is toward the front. So that's a new take, but you've got this dormer to kind of balance it out. My opinion is these won't be visible from Morehead Avenue. I don't think, unless that row that's facing Greystone. Could we look at the 2D? Which building type is, could you remind me which building type is facing Greystone?
Building type 1 and I believe 8.
It might be helpful to look at the rendering for that.
Yeah, that's true, Blake. That would be the most descriptive.
Yeah, so this is the front elevate. Is this the front elevation, that side that faces Morehead? This one right here.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and so that I mean, you've got the salt box here and you don't have that roof deck. Does this row not have roof decks?
They do. If you look at sheet 18, you can see where they face the graystone.
Got it. Yeah.
You can see there's the gable forms that pop up, and in between those gable forms is the roof deck for each unit.
Right. So just my opinion, but with that unusual configuration being more interior to the site and, you know, attention paid on the exterior here to be more compatible, I could be supporting the current conditions. It doesn't affect views from the street.
I think where I am on this is there evidence that anything that has been proposed would not be compatible with the district? It sounds like Andy believes that perhaps the complexity of the design, where, you know, roofs in the district have more simple roof designs, could be an incompatibility. But I'm curious if anyone else would want to make the case that as designed, the roofing just isn't compatible with what we see in Morehead Hill.
I think the project's a little reductive in that it tries to be a lot of different things, or certainly is using a lot of different things to justify some design. I don't know. I could be swayed, but I
don't know if everyone's been losing Tad. I've definitely lost Tad.
I have as well.
Was everybody else able to hear everything Tad had to say?
No, he broke up a fair bit for me.
Okay.
You want me to try again?
Please do, sir.
I agree with Andy that there seems to be a lot going on here. I think they try, to me, appears a little too much. It seems a little reductive to me.
Andy has his hand up.
Just ignore that, Matt. There's something going on with Zoom on my end. Sorry about that.
And just to remind you all, please really link these with the criteria that are not being met.
That's kind of where I am. I mean, we only have 6 commissioners here to vote on this. I want to make sure that before we subject it to a vote that, you know, I have a firm understanding of where things appear to be headed. And it sounds like Andy and Tad have significant concerns significant enough where they might not be able to lend their support to the COA. I feel satisfied that it has met our criteria, and I'm wondering if it might make some sense to poll Andy and Faye and Tom to see what their concerns might be, or how they're leaning before we put this to a vote.
Matt, before we do that, this is Commissioner Goolsby. Just to link it to the criteria, I think what we're really talking about is one of those overarching ideas when we're talking about these structures, and it's from in this case non-contributing B to scale, height, and massing. I mean, when we're looking at these roof forms, we're talking about the proportions, the scale, the how these things really are shaped. And I think there's also, let's see, there's a section here about roof forms. Yes, in section 3B design roof forms to be compatible with contributing structures in the district. And I think, the applicant certainly has shown where a lot of these roof forms are coming from the district. That's not in question, but just the combination of all of them in this project, I think, is what's in question.
I'm not a designer. I'm just a construction lawyer, and I typically represent the contractors. So I feel like I shouldn't even express opinions on design related issues. The massing issue is interesting to me only because when this case came before us, well, not this exact case, but when the previous proposal for this parcel came before us, we approved buildings that, at least to my eyes, had far greater massing than what we have here. And so I'm okay, I think, personally, with that criterion. And the discussion about the design being reductive, trying to do a little bit too much, borrowing too much from the district, basically a potpourri of roof forms. I guess I just never really thought of the criterion that way, but I could certainly understand, especially from a designer's eyes, why it might not add up, that the sum might not be, well, I'm going to butcher that expression. I can understand the concern. I don't know if the concern is great enough for me to say that I can't support the proposal. I guess one thing I would ask of Andy and Tad and potentially of Laura, I mean, if we were to ask the applicant to reconsider, what sort of guidance would you provide for revisions that could garner your support for the COA?
I think, this is Commissioner Goolsby. Apologize to who I may have just cut off, but I think he's looking at that one end elevation and bringing some resolution to how it meets the flat portion of the building. Since it is a different slope on one side, is a resolution there? Should it match should both slopes match? I don't know. Yeah, and how does it end? It brings into question to be a study for this design team. Do these things bookend? Whatnot, but I think a little more study on and what's on the screen, this left-hand elevation. And in the overall package, just some clarity about what's being approved. I'd like to go ahead and, if they were to come back, just getting a clean set of drawings package.
So I'll just go ahead and express my concern to the applicant about going forward with a vote today. Because we are at 6 commission members, I believe we need 4 in order to approve this COA. And I'm not convinced that right now we've got 4 yes votes. I've said this to each applicant where we've got some concerns about what's been proposed. We can certainly go forward with a vote. As of right now, I'm not exactly sure how that vote's going to turn out. Alternatively, I think there's been a pretty clear expression of concern with respect to some of the roof design. And it's typically our practice to give folks the opportunity to try to address those concerns and come back a month or 2 later to have any revisions that have been suggested considered by the commission. And so I think I'd like to at least get the sense from the applicant as to how they think they would like to proceed today in light of some of the concerns they've heard expressed from multiple of our commission members.
Would it be possible to do a straw poll of some of the commissioners that haven't shared the concern regarding the roof profiles?
I'm happy to hear from Faye and from Tom and.
Yeah. I think that I have a major problem with this in terms of the Morehead Hill district, in terms of putting this many townhouses that close to a very historic property in that particular area. I can't get to it. And all of a sudden you come across, 68 townhouses on what, 3 acres? I think it's 3 acres. Is that right? 3 acres?
Yes, and just to make sure I understand, you're questioning the massing as stated in the criterion, because we need to connect directly to the criteria. You're concerned about the massing of the structures in relation to adjacent properties.
Yeah, I'd rather see single family homes or something else on that in that area. I don't see a need for 68 townhouses in there.
Okay. Just to remind commissioners.
You know, you've done the best you can to come up with a design that is appropriate for that area. If you were going to build the townhouses, but I just don't think that many townhouses on that property is a good
Just a reminder to commissioners that we don't the commission does not regulate use, only the physical form.
I realize that.
Okay.
I realize that.
So again, to the applicant, you know, I'm hearing at least 3 commissioners express significant reservations about the COA as currently drafted.
Matt, I'll say to you and the applicant team, if we were to continue this case and you all were to work with the roof in response to the things that we've spoken about here today, I could support this at a future call.
This is Commissioner Goolsby again. Matt, you had asked the question also about the setback. I just want to make sure that you're satisfied in that response or had anything more to add there.
You know, if the recommendation is to continue, and if the applicant is willing to continue, I would like to have that issue addressed. I understand what we're hearing about the potential that the grading operation could have an effect on the trees, but if there's an opportunity to save some of those existing mature trees by reworking the site plan to get an additional 5 feet or so of setback, it's something I would at least like to be considered. And if the answer is we've considered it and for reasons X, Y, and Z, it's not workable for our overall plan, then I'd like to hear that explanation. But it would be helpful for me to hear that from the applicant.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it sounds like we're heading towards the direction of a continuation here. So, you know, we can take a look. I don't know if we'll be able to get more specifics in terms of, you know, the specific aspects of the roof profile that are not consistent with the, you know, that are not in conformance. You know, I guess that maybe that's the part I'm not a little bit clear on, you know, like how do we make it objective just to make sure we come back and address the concerns. But yes, we'll be happy to, you know, look at that as well as looking at the setback condition and absolutely. I mean, we want to maximize the amount of trees on the site, be they new or be they existing. So we will be happy to take a look at that.
And I just want to reiterate something, well, not reiterate, I want to state something for the record that I haven't shared with you, but may have shared with other applicants recently. We've had occasion here in recent months to consider, you know, very significant applications. I would certainly consider this to be one. That's not to diminish any other application, but, you know, this is a very important parcel and historic neighborhood next to a very important property. And it just hasn't been unusual for us in recent months to sort of raise these questions, make sure our criteria is being satisfied. And when we've got concerns, to work with the applicant and say, look, here's issue A, B, and C, and these are the reasons why we're concerned. Would you, please consider a continuance and, give some thoughtful consideration to the concerns we've raised and see what you might come up with. One of the cases that we considered today was exactly that. We had some concerns about what was being proposed and offered the opportunity for continuance, and the property owners there really took to heart our concerns and came back with a proposal that we approved. So I don't want y'all to think that we're signaling this out for special treatment. We just want to make sure we're doing our jobs, making sure our criteria are met, and making sure that all of our concerns are addressed in those regards. And so I hope you'll take these concerns in the spirit in which they're offered. I don't know how much time you think you may need. And Carla, I don't know how much time you think might be necessary for you to receive additional input. Are we talking a month? Are we talking 2 months?
2 months would be what we would advise to allow sufficient time for redesign and for staff analysis.
So that would get us into the, I think the first week of February, if I'm remembering our schedule correctly. But if you're all are okay with that continuance and taking a look at some of the issues that have been addressed here, let us know and I'll go ahead and move for that continuance.
Yeah, I think it sounds like there wouldn't be enough support today, and given the concerns on the roof profile and the setback. So we'll be happy to take a look at that, and your comments regarding the prominence of the site, like we absolutely agree with. It's one of the reasons that we decided to purchase the site, and we love this district. So we'll be happy to take a look and at those two concerns primarily. Is there any ability to resubmit sooner? Like, let's say if we were able to hash this out amongst our team within the next 2 weeks to be able to make it to the January hearing, is that a possibility?
We would basically need to have the staff report finalized around that time. So if you were able to do it in a week.
Okay. All right, so I mean, I guess we'll plan for the February hearing, and we'll head towards that direction. But we will take these comments and sharpen our pencils and support the continuation proposal.
Very good. Well, look, I appreciate everybody's patience and willingness to consider the concerns that have been raised here today. With all that being said, I will go ahead and make a motion that with respect to case COA 2100084-518 Morehead Avenue, new construction, that the commission continue the case, defer further consideration of it until the Tuesday, February 1, 2022 meeting of this commission.
Second.
And Clerk Holmes, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goolsby,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreger,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Again, y'all, thank you very much for your time and for your input and for your comments. And we look forward very much to hearing from you again in a couple months' time. Hope you have a great holiday season in the interim.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
so much.
you.
We appreciate everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Y'all, that is the last case on our agenda. There was one item that I did not address before we reached our COA applications. Jonathan's absence, do we need to have a vote on whether or not that is an excused or inexcused absence? I know we started doing that recently.
Yes. Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
And has anyone heard from Jonathan as to why he's not here?
Yes, he is on a plane. He was delayed due to the travel descriptions.
Oh, okay.
Travel, yeah, restrictions. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion then to excuse Jonathan Diane's absence from today's commission meeting.
Commissioner Goolsby, second.
And Clerk Holmes, one more roll call vote today, please.
All right, Chair Bouchard,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fieselman, Vice Chair Goolsby,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
April is
She's not here. Commissioner Kreger,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
The only new business item on our agenda is the minor COA report. Amanda? Wait. Who's responsible for the minor COA report these days?
Yes, that will be provided to you all after this meeting.
Okay. Good deal.
Oh,
Anyone else have any other business?
Yes, Chair Bouchard, do we need to vote on the excused absence from November 7th meeting? That was Fieselman, and well, we don't have quorum for that, I was thinking. And Johnson, Fieselman and Johnson from last month meeting.
Did we not
So
vote
far-
during those meetings? During that meeting?
No, like their excused absence, did we vote? Okay, so we don't vote now since we voted last month for their excused absence, right? Okay.
I think that's it. I don't know about y'all, I'm tired.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone for hanging in there, and hope you have a great holiday.
Thank you, you too.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
We are adjourned.